Hello, and welcome into my 100% completion and lore dive into blueprints. Obviously, if you've seen anything about my YouTube channel or anything that I've done on Twitch, you know that I am mildly addicted to this game and have played several different game modes, uh, wrote a lore video, a couple of them actually, and done a lot of blueprints bingo, that sort of thing. And I really just wanted to play the game and just play. And I thought one fun way to sort of do that in conjunction with, creating content and that sort of thing, which I'm not a huge content creator here or anything, but would just be to dive in on the lore and really read through everything that's there with an eye towards, what I know about the game as a post end game player, etc., etc. And like a lot of stuff that I probably haven't read some of the room descriptions in 6, 7, 8 months at least, maybe, and some of the individual letters or books entries or something like that. And so there's a lot of things that I've probably forgotten. And so it's fun to just kind of go through those and to give me an excuse to do that. Hence this video. So this series will be Monday nights on Twitch, replacing my usual Blueprints bingo runs for a little while until I get through everything. You can see the board that I have set up here is based off of the 100% completion race that I did against Dread Red J last November when we did our charity stream, November 25. And so I adapted it, added some things that we left out that weren't lore specific. And yeah, just sort of adapted it for what I was going to need for this. The completion points are mostly best guess estimates, fun stuff dreamt up in my head. They're not necessarily an accurate estimation of completion, but they give a pretty decent estimation based on the effort involved in the thing that you accomplish by doing it. Then like the stuff at the bottom there, like the mailroom letters is optional. I'm gonna try and do the mailroom experiment and get all the letters and read through them all. That's low on my priority list, but I have it on there to track anyway. Also things like using all the shrine blessings. Using them, not high on my list. I'll mark off any ones that I do use. Some of them obviously must get used, but it's like we'll see. I have it there to remind me to try it out and use them more frequently than I normally do, but I'm not going to hold myself to every single one of them because using them is not nearly as interesting as just the description about them and thinking about it. So anyway, with that explanation, we're going to get started on here. And just to get things going here, there's a link to the YouTube channel with specifically the lore video that I referenced, and that should be available at all times on YouTube channel. So just for starters, before we touch anything else in the game, I was looking at this startup screen, and the background that's behind the Blueprints logo there, I don't know how visible it is on what makes it over into OBS, but on my screen at least, there are different things that show up there right now. Of course, it's got the fireplace from 46. But while I was looking at it, it made me study the stuff on this desk a little closer, and the globe there has a couple of little teeny tiny details on it that I don't remember seeing on any of the other globes. Maybe I missed them and I'll find them now. But on this globe, at least, the edge C is what you see right in the top center of that globe, sort of boxed in with the name there, and that's the C that separates Eraja and Orinda Aries and Nuance. And then just south of that, in Eraja, first of all, you can see the land symbols for Eraja and Nuance on there. So if you didn't know early on, but you decided to study this globe picture, you might have actually seen an early instance of the Eraja logo and the Nuance diamond up there, almost hidden by the vertical curved bar that's in the foreground. But then in the background, right above that, it looks like there could be like a little sea monster in there, right above the edge sea, which I think is kind of cool. But then below the edge sea, in Eraja itself, I swear it looks like there's almost a little castle in that little sort of the bit corner of land that sticks out from Araja and pointing toward Nuance, it looks like there's a little castle there. We know nothing about Araja almost. Like it's mostly a mystery to us. And so I find that like that detail written on there, I find kind of interesting. And it's a little hard to see what's going on in the sea west of Nuance. Um, there's just sort of weird scribbly looking things there, so really can't tell much. But I honestly had not paid much attention to this globe until now. And then, of course, at the very top, you can see Arindia right up near what is the top of the globe. Which the interesting part is that top of the globe, that point where the pole goes in. If you think about the map, that's a little too far south, I think, for what we'd see as the North Pole. So the globe itself, that pole there, does not seem to be the North-South Pole of what we know based on like the classroom map. And again, I need to compare this against the globes we see in game, but little details like that. As far as the rest of the stuff that's on the screen, of course, there's a surprising amount of important information just visible on this one screen. The red crown, of course, becomes important later. Herbert's statue. The red drapery, I can't quite tell what's in the far top right corner of the screen. And again, it's one of those things I never really paid attention to. It could be the base of a statue. It's really hard to make out, glare or no glare. You just see sort of like an angle of what looks like stone behind the red draping that's there. And then, of course, the bishop is a hint towards the chess pieces. Hourglass, my only connection there I could think of would be like in the timely manner, that the phrase that has come up once or twice. The goblet there, I find interesting mostly because my son's the one that pointed it out to me and the first day that he joined me for a recording on my original playthrough. He's like, hey, that goblet has 8 sides on it. You're right, I'd never noticed that. And I was just sort of coming to appreciate the significance of the number 8 at that point. So the fact that he pointed that out to me, I thought was cool. And then, of course, the compass right next to it, an item from the game. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to be said about the splash screen. So we are just going to dive right on in. And we're starting a new game. My plan is, because I'm not going for a day 1 run of this. My plan is, once I get through 46, I'm going to import the trophies from my Dare and Cursed modes, just so that they're here so I can complete the trophy case and have them to look at. But I'm not going to do a separate Dare and Cursed mode run just for this, so I'm just going to import those 2 trophies after I've completed 46. That'll also help me get to BlueTents faster and whatnot, but although I am not going to trace down every single BlueTent memo in the game. I will, however, be reading what the BlueTent memos are when we get to those blue rooms as part of it. So the goal here is we're going to discuss every single room as I draft it for the first time. We're going to talk about what's in the room, lore about the room, description, BlueTent memos, whatever I can think of. If someone has a question about one later on, you're free to ask in chat and come into a later stream if you are watching this on a VOD or YouTube. Come on by. You're free to come in and ask questions, offer theories, that sort of thing. I'm going light on unproven theories. I'll mention some of them as I go, I'm sure, but I'm not going to dive in on conspiracies, unproven ideas, and some of the really crazy stuff that people have come up with, which is fascinating, but not the point of the series. So, pay attention to Herbert
S. Sinclair of the Mount Holly Estate at Reddington, do publish and declare this instrument my last will and testament, and hereby revoke all wills and codicils heretofore made by me. I give and bequeath to my grand
The image of the family there, I'm assuming, is some of Herbert's extended family from his cousins. We don't know anything about that branch of the family.
And interest in and to the house and land which I own near Mount Holly.
Oh, Laser, I'll explain the feats once this is over. Give me just a minute.
And bequest is contingent on my aforementioned grandnephew
Welcome in, by the way.
discovering the location of the 46th room of my 45-room estate. The location of the room has been kept a secret from all the staff and servants of the manor.
Except the ones that all seem to know about it, of course.
That any heir worthy of the Sinclair legacy should have no trouble uncovering its whereabouts within a timely manner. Should my grandnephew fail to uncover this room or provide proof of his discovery to the executors of my will, then this gift shall lapse. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 18th day of March, 1993. Herbert S. Sinclair.
I don't often stop to listen to the whole intro very much. So, quick explanation of the feats, and I will expand it and show them here. So, the ones that the trophies that are, have parts to them, like completing the Sanctum puzzle, building all the contraptions, etc. Those are all broken out up top, of course. And give me just a second to activate veteran mode here. And then we'll start talking about stuff. I hate right-hand corners out of the entrance hall. Okay, one's allowed. Okay, sorry, we'll keep going here. So I'm not going for speed runs, but I do want to get veteran mode activated. Yeah, so we have each of the Sanctum puzzles marked off, the contraptions, each of the directories. As we've talked about the room and I've drafted it, I'll be checking them off here. All the way down. The other trophies, each one as they're completed, of course. The constellations up through Florealis, just to make sure that I've seen them all, because this is a completion, not just lore, but actually completing all the things. Inkwell, optional, and there's not a chance in hell I'm going all the way through the Spiral of Stars. We'll talk about it, but I'm not doing that. Manuscripts as part of the book list, reading through everything here, buying out the Mount Holy gift shop, permanent upgrades. This one gets checked off when I buy it, of course. Viewing all the stamps in the library so they're collected. Eating all the different courses in the dining hall, including all the spread ones. Power sledging everything. All the upgrade discs. Using all 3 file cabinet keys. Fully upgrading the planetarium. Unlocking all the Morjai that have allowance coins in them. I will not be doing, unless I'm just bored in the moment, and you know what I'm talking about, any of the Morjai boxes that don't have allowance coins in them. There will be some that I do in the Court of Ares, of course, but I'm not doing all the blue ones. Alzara cutscenes, pulling all the levers at least once, all the red letters, of course. Every item in the inventory that's not already used elsewhere for contraptions and such has to be owned, and we'll read it through and talk about it if necessary. Standalone feats specifically that you asked about: viewing the will, viewing Arve's will, opening her ladyship's diary, breaking open poor Hamwise, stealing the red crown, using the axe 3 times. Some of these, like using the axe 3 times, it's not a completionist thing, but when Dread Red J and I were designing our 100% completion race that we did last year for charity, we thought of some of these like, you don't have to break open the piggy bank, just making him visible is fine. But actually breaking him open is something that someone completing all of the game would almost certainly do, as is using the axe all 3 times, etc. So we included them on our list of things. Digging up Baron Bafflers, I really shouldn't make it optional. It's can be a pain to arrange, so if I don't get to it, we'll talk about it, but I'm not going to force myself to get it if you were getting towards the end of things and I haven't managed to pull it off yet, but it is on the list. Mailroom letters is optional, but as I said at the very beginning of the stream, I am going to try on this. And then talking about, I'm going to get some of these obviously as part of it, and actually activating and using some of the rest of them is optional, but if they're here, I'll check them off. Yeah, the Gemstone Cavern is not going to happen, but we'll talk about it. But I'm not going to do that to myself. Maybe as a signing off at the very end of this thing, because this isn't a run that I'm going to be keeping. So, starting the things off with the first room that I draft in almost any given run of the game, regardless of game mode, whether it's day one, bingo, whatnot, is closet. Nope. There it is. So the closet is a very modest recessed space used for storage. This particular closet is favored by the junior members of the staff, who utilize it to stash away assorted articles and knickknacks whose proper place in the estate is yet unknown to them. Which, given the stuff that's in here, makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of just random crap in here. And the items that you can get in here I find to be a great start to any given day. The upgrades to the closet none of them have a... where is it? Closet, yeah. None of them have any changes to the description of the room. The functionality obviously changes based on which upgrade disc you use, but the description stays the same for all of them, so there's not really a whole lot to discuss about the closet. And we didn't really talk about the entrance hall, come to think of it, before I go anywhere else. The entrance hall, past the steps and beyond the grand doors, admission to Mount Holly is granted by way of a dark and garish lobby, suitably called the entrance hall. From here, each guest's adventure begins, however the 3 doors that proceed onward do not always lead to the same adjoining rooms. Anybody who's played Blueprints, that's kind of an understatement. The cool things about this that I find is, number one, the reflection here is not a reflection. And game design wise, it makes a lot of sense because reflections are expensive. But basically, there is a room underneath this that is built in its entirety upside down, and there's a transparent, shiny floor in between the two of you. And so you can see, I don't think, like, it's hard to tell what does and doesn't reflect. I think the flowers you can see do reflect, but anything that's interactable doesn't necessarily reflect. And for instance, I don't think the vase reflects, if I remember correctly. And that's because obviously the vases break. And so they are not part of the reflection down there. You can just sort of barely see it in this square right here. You can see the top of the table, and then there's no vase right there. So it's a brilliant design decision to do it that way, but it's just a cool quirk of the room, I think. Of the rest of the decor in the room, obviously here we have the artwork of Trinsdale Lake that is north of Reddington. The 2 statues here are Lord Epsom and Baron Thomas Sinclair, who are coincidentally, or not, Mary's grandfathers specifically, I guess, which then begs the question later on when we get to a different version of this room. It has 2 different statues. Why those 2 specific people? Because they don't have an obvious and immediate, by their name, connection to the Sinclair family, but they might have a connection to Lady Arve, for instance. Sort of hard to tell, because we don't know of the familial connections between the 2 statues that are here in the other version of this room. And of course, up top here is the logo of Mount Holly, the female variant of Ilex Messervei, the blue holly plant. The female because it has the berries there, so this is actually a blue princess plant, not the blue prince, which is the male version of the plant. And I guess we're just going to go take my normal route. Oh, duh. Got to go through here. I'm not used to reading through everything anymore. I'm going to have to remind myself to do this stuff. Searching the estate can be exhausting. Each time you enter a room, you will lose 1 step. When you no longer have any steps available, you'll be too tired to continue searching the matter and must call it a day. Pretty sure those are the steps I use to create the footstep icon that's part of my Twitch emotes. And then, of course, Open only in the event of my death.
Simon, welcome to Mount Holly. You may not remember, but I have fond memories of your many visits here as a young boy, and I hope these rooms provide you with as much amusement as it did in those lost summer days. By the time you read this, I will assume you are fully aware of my last wishes and all the details of the bequest. Please do not mistake my intentions in giving you this challenge as a lack of confidence. I assure you, nothing could have been further from my mind when I chose you as my heir. With that said, there are a few ground rules in this commission covered in the fine print of my will that I feel I should bring to your attention. No tools or items may be brought into the estate from the outside. Tools and items found on the estate may not be taken off the estate. You may not stay overnight. I don't suspect that any of these stipulations should prove an impediment for someone as resourceful as yourself, but it is very important to me that you start fresh each morning and not rely on the successes of the previous day. One final word of advice. Do not assume that the rooms you find today will be the same rooms you find tomorrow. These grounds have provided me a home for the last half-century, and even I am uncertain of which room lies beyond any particular door. Your grandmother used to say, "Don't go where the path leads. Abandon the path and go where you want it to lead." With all my love and wishes, best of luck, Herbert S. Sinclair.
Now, the interesting things here in the letter. Number one. It's mentioned here, that Simon used to come to the manor, but you're not told right away why he may not stop, because it sounds like there's a gap, and there is. When Simon was, 8 years old, I think? About 8? He stopped coming to the manor. So it's been about 6 years since Simon has been here, presumably. And when we get to the red letters, obviously we'll see why. The ground rules, make sense from a gaming perspective. What it leads me to think, obviously, that because there's been I've seen a lot of discussions in forums, even the non deep dive conspiracy types, where it's just discussing why is this a thing, and oh my gosh, why don't we get to sleep inside? Nobody gets to sleep inside. What happens to people who stay inside at night if the room doesn't get drafted the next day, etc., etc. And I don't think the house doesn't reset every night all by itself, I don't think. And then I'm sure there's discussions about this, and I could be misremembering some details. But obviously, if you go to bed here at night, if Herbert goes to bed at night, if Anne Babbage doesn't sleep here on the grounds, presumably she lives in Reddington with her husband because she's Mrs. Babbage, and she's responsible for drafting of the house each day. But it doesn't say necessarily that she has to go in and find the rooms that, I forgot to draft. I didn't make it over to the East Wing, so I guess Herbert's locked in limbo in the master bedroom for the night. Sorry, I'll see you tomorrow, boss. So there has to be some permanence, otherwise the idea of a bedroom in this place makes zero sense whatsoever. And so what it seems more likely to me is that the house can be reset at need, and either it's been set up this way just for purposes of Simon exploring in this game, or it's part of Anne Babbage coming and resetting things at night, not coming in the mornings. And again, I forget some of the details, and we might come across them as we go, but obviously the house cannot reset everything and lock everybody in limbo overnight, every single night, all the time. That is just ridiculous. But for purposes of setting up this puzzle and the challenge that Herbert is presenting for Simon, it has been set up that way so that he has to leave every night. Don't ask me why ending your day in a bedroom makes any difference at that point, but it's a game mechanic that has a very weird implications for the real world if it were actually carried through. So there's got to be some other mechanism for it being reset. It can't just reset itself every night and everybody hopes for the best the next day. The other thing that I thought was interesting in here is starting fresh and not relying on the success of the previous day. Considering the family dynamics and building on past generations' accomplishments and steps toward ultimate goals. I find it interesting that Herbert has insisted on this mechanic for Simon, to not rely on his own successes of a previous day and to get used to the idea of starting fresh on things. The last bit here is just, your grandmother used to say, don't go where the path leads, abandon the path. That's not his grandmother that said it, it's his great-grandmother. And it's hard to say what the distinction is there, because this is, Uncle Herbert. No, it's Great Uncle Herbert, or Grunkle, as he's commonly known. And so, his grandmother is Clara. Clara did not necessarily say that, because don't go where the path leads is part of what's written in Orive's atelier, and before the manor was even made. And so presumably that's something that Orive used to say. It may have carried down to Clara. Maybe Clara changed it. Maybe Clara adopted it as her own, and that's why he says grandmother. But chances are more likely he means great-grandmother. And they tend to just leave the word great out in a lot of these things, because, and like when they describe someone as, oh, my cousin Mary. Well, it's actually your cousin Mary once removed, or some, like, it's slightly more distant a relation than just saying cousin. And this is great uncle, not uncle, that sort of thing. So I think they tend to just leave some of those descriptive terms out, rather than complicate things, honestly. See, Laser says, I would tend to agree the resets are at will, seeing as how presumably Ravain still slept somewhere. Yeah, right? Because that's actually a point that I had on the outer room. Makes no sense if it's a one and done for the day. Because he can't sleep in the hovel and get his tools for working that day at the same time. So, much less do anybody do anything else out there. So there has to be a reset mechanic that we are not privy to in the game. One mechanic I really wish that there was a way to do this, and if there was a sequel or a DLC or whatever, is if there was an upgrade or some item that let you actually spend the night in a bedroom and start in that room in that spot on the map the next day, but you don't get your bonus 20 steps for the orchard, for instance. So there would be a mechanic to start in a bedroom specifically. If you end your day there, then you could find yourself starting in rank 9 corner room in the bedroom, or the master bedroom or something, and then the rest of the house is empty, so you have to go from there. So it's not necessarily a good idea to start in rank 9 unless you're going to start with a bunch of keys the next day, for instance. But the option of starting somewhere else, just as an option if you wanted to, as a particular item mechanic or a power or something, I think would be a really cool thing if it were included without breaking the game. Like if it was something that was only occasionally available, that sort of thing. I think it'd be pretty cool. But that's me. Alright, moving on. The corridor. A long hall with 2 doors at either end that had been one of your uncle's most frequently traveled rooms. Consequently, he had left strict instructions with the household staff that the doors of this corridor should never, under any circumstance, be locked. Not sure what the implications of that are, but it does make it nice that there's one room that's always unlocked, and it's nice to have around. Most of the hallways don't have a whole lot of explicit lore available in them. There's a couple obviously that do, but there's nothing. I will not be going into the hats. There are some people who obsess over the hats. More power to them. All the different vases and boxes and whatnot that you can find. It's interesting, but for purposes of what we're doing here, mostly meaningless. Let's see. Clef the Mouse. Unlocking the apple orchard implies that Simon starts every following day by eating 10 plus apples. Yep. Maybe more to cover the steps to get there before heading to the front door. Yeah? That's how I've always read it, which, dear God, if that child doesn't find the lavatory every day, Lord help him. 10 apples every day for breakfast, that's going to mess with your insides, something fierce. Okay, I should be able to get the utility closet somewhere else later, so we're going to go for the billiard room first here. Now this one's a fun one because there's a lot of implications. I'll be talking about the upgrades when I get the discs, more than I do when we actually draft the room for the first time. So for the billiard room, this smoky back room, featuring a pool table and fully stocked bar, has served as a retreat on more than one occasion for guests lacking the social wit required for after-dinner conversation. rude. A rather curious game of darts provided the less competitive players a unique opportunity to ponder over its unusual rules. A billiard room, obviously one of those early rooms that is of use for the entire game, no matter what type or how long you play. The rules of the dartboard, very simple. I'm not really going to go into them. We're just going to play really fast here. 7, it's going to give us 10, 19, 14, 5, 19, 15, 4, 2, 6, 12. 15, 11, 4, 3, 12. Silver key. Unlocking a door with the silver key leads to a room with many doors. I have a silver key from the keys that I got from IM8-bit, and the only thing I really noticed about that one, obviously, there's not a whole lot of detail up on the top on the handheld part of it, but on the bit, the E that's there is not conspicuous in itself, but when looked at with some of the other rooms, the keys that also have an E, most of them are rotated sideways. This is the only one I can think of offhand that has it pointed downwards like that. So could be coincidence. I'm not one of the people who believes that there are no coincidences in this game and that everything you see must have some sort of hidden meaning in it. I'm more than happy to be proven wrong on any of those, though, but I am by nature a bit of a skeptic when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'm happy to point them out, but I don't know nor follow all of the different twists and turns that things could be. But that's certainly the only key that I have that has the E downward pointing. And I think there was, I forgot to read the metal detector, excuse me. Greater chance of finding keys and coins. Very light on descriptive on some of these things. Ooh, okay, we don't have a courtyard yet. Screw it, let's do the storeroom. A dedicated storage space filled from end to end with a surplus of chairs, carpets, paintings, and a handful of other things that had at one time been in vogue and on display elsewhere in the house. The only thing I find really interesting about that is that all this crap is still there in the original draft of this room. Not sure what that means, if anything, but I find it interesting that all the random crap that's piled up in here has apparently been piled up in here since the room was first created. The little house that's back here, I find interesting, but I don't have any sort of real explanation for behind it. The only other thing of permanent note in here, of course, is good old Swinbird. Which, it's always good luck to come in here and click on Swinbird. And of course, the rocking chair is wooden, so it could be probably from Herbert and Simon's days as a kid, maybe. Again, I mean, a rocking horse back from that long ago could have been in the original plans for the house, for instance. Picture puzzle in the room directory photo here is... What? Oh, the dessert or flan. What is the picture on there, on the big one there? I don't recognize that. No. Alright, let's see. No, that wasn't one of them. Alright, I don't think there's anything else yet in this room to go over. Alright. It's already shaping up to be a weird day because of dead ends. Alright, parlor. Alright, obviously the parlor puzzle is the key thing in this room. The holly leaf teapots, the inevitable pawn. I love the little twisty thing and especially I like looking at it from the side here because it looks like a 46 in the way the Everything is twisted together. I always like that about that design. And the teeny tiny rocking horse up there. The picture, of course, that was shown during the intro. I really wish we had a in-game representation of the stuff that was also there with the introduction to, or invitation to the recital, and Herbert's, what I said was Herbert's family in the photo and that sort of thing. I wish we had those in-game somewhere to go look at more closely.
Dear Herbert, it was a great honor receiving the invitation to dine at your estate with the Oldhams this past Thursday. If I'm being frank, it had been quite a while since we had been seen in decent society, and we were beginning to worry that my wife's wit had lost its charm. I have no delusions that my company is rival to hers. If I can refresh your memory, we both spent much of that evening discussing our mutual love of games and puzzles, and I had mentioned to you a rather singular parlor game that I had played some years back, involving 3 boxes of different colors. You had pressed me to write with the particulars of this game, when I found the time, and I have included with this letter all the details you will need to share with guests should you be inclined to play this confounding game. Always your friend, M. Lowry.
And of course the rules for the parlor game. The one thing... Oh, flank stick. Oh, I didn't see the... Yeah, flan and flank out. That's interesting, because that's not a picture that gets used. Huh. Maybe. The one thing that I find really interesting about the parlor box here is the description here. And let's see, we checked off that. No, not the rotunda. We've now read the parlor. We've done the original billiard room. And that's it so far. Anyway, the parlor boxes. This letter dates back to... Near as I can place it in the timeline, this is from May 2nd of 1992. Based on just the... I forget exactly why I placed it there, but I know... I think the name... Yeah, so M. Lowry checks out Sightseer's Guide to Reddington in April 25th of 1992, so a week later, date on this letter, the timeline there at least makes sense, assuming he checked out Sightseer's Guide on the date that he came for dinner with Herbert. The one wrench that throws in the discussion, though, they're talking about this parlor box game that has been set up, which means that the boxes... First of all, the parlor itself wasn't there, but the parlor boxes that are underground at the end of the tunnel wouldn't have been there yet until this came up, which means that is long after Mary's disappearance. And the final manuscript from Mary, of course, is in one of those. And that the entire end game setup for this is one of the endings that people have for the game is down at the end of that tunnel. Why is that set up there in the parlor boxes with everything that leads up to it, including the blue door, that should not have been there until after May the 2nd of 1992, which is only a year and a half ago from current day? It's either... Because most of the things we assume, there's a lot of stuff that was set up by Mother Mary, of course. That one should not have been able to be set up by her directly. And so that would have had to have been put there by Herbert after the fact, which I'm not entirely sure what that does to the timeline of how that was all done. But the fact that the parlor boxes are down there and Herbert didn't have the idea yet for the parlor boxes until May of 92. Just interesting. Anyway, so the rules for the parlor box, of course, one is always true, one is always false, and the other one can be anything. There are 3 boxes in this room. Very true. 2 boxes in this room are empty. Also true. Therefore, the 3rd box must be false. This box is one of the empty boxes. No, it's not. You're not. You're a liar, McLiar face box. Okay. Entrance hall has been checked. Corridor, that was the other one we looked at. Orange directory, corridor. All right, checking these things off is going to be a little tedious the first time going through, so this first couple of days here is going to go pretty slow, but bear with me. We'll be discussing stuff more as we go along. Obviously, if I did the guest bedroom, that would be a terrible decision, so we're going to go with... I hate doing it, but... we'll do spare room just because I can't risk getting trapped. All right, spare rooms is one of the more interesting rooms in the game just because of the double upgrade nature of it. Spare room, an unfurnished, unfinished, and otherwise unremarkable empty room. If there had been at some point been plans for the spare room, it would have seemed those designs are now long forgotten. I will talk more about it when we get to the upgrade discs, obviously, but for now, this is just the blank room with sort of bluish grayish paint on it. Not a whole lot to this. Annoyingly empty, in fact. I've heard people curse this room because they didn't know about the upgrades yet, and all they've ever seen is this empty room, and every time they go through it, they just curse at the room for weeks on end in the game. It's actually quite funny. Ooh. Bug. Yeah, let's do it. Our first cutscene. Look at that handsome young man. Perfect hair, always stays still. If I remember right, some of these are different in this clip here than they are in when you finally are allowed to look at it in the actual room. I forget which ones are different, though. And I probably never would have noticed it, except I saw it pointed out in one of the deeper chats on the Blueprints Discord server. Like, I think one of them was like the vault couldn't have been where it showed up in relation to another room or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but obviously the Swan Song HSS acronym that you can enter here that you learn from the spare room, walk-in closet, archives, Nook, is that the storeroom, office, nursery, gallery, hallway, security, showroom. The acronym Swan Song HSS, and that gives you access to the recorded videos that are stored here. The interesting thing here, of course, is this is the only one you ever see move, because you're the only one here to view it while you're in the room, obviously. But the rooms don't change based on the upgrades that you get. So the nursery will always show this version of the nursery. The spare room will always be this empty version of the spare room. I think that's the only upgrades that happen to any of these particular rooms. I don't remember, I'm assuming, but I don't remember, like, if you lower the these things, the glass cases in the gallery, if they would change in here. I've never actually looked. If anybody knows offhand, throw it in the comments, but I don't remember ever looking, but considering nothing else changes, I would actually be a little surprised if they did. Pool stays filled as far as I know. And that's the only other changes that might show up here. So, our first night. I was about to say, this table over here, this area is a prime place to overlook things like the lockpick. Thank you, game, for making my point for me. Crap, I forgot to read it. We'll occasionally be able to open some locked doors. So, pretty standard stuff. There's not really a whole lot lore related to the rest of the objects that are in this room, except that we have our first red and blue memos. Until further notice, the antechamber has been unlocked and access levers are no longer required to grant entry. I don't know why Kirk Darren thought that crap like this was an effective security measure, especially with something rather easy to decipher that, well, gosh, that wasn't true. I don't think I'm going to trust these red ones. The red ones seem to always be lying to me. Well, cracked that one, didn't we? Keycard access security doors are more likely to appear in the higher ranks of the estate. Likewise, as a redundant security measure, normal doors in the estate will also be more likely to be locked as you progress north. Blue memo, so therefore it's true. Staff notice. Effective the first week of December, payroll for all live-out and seasonal staff will be managed electronically. As your attendance will no longer be registered at morning roll call, it is doubly important that you do not fail to clock in and out at one of the electronic computer terminals on the estate. 2 of these terminals can be found at security, where the punch clock used to be, and in the laboratory. Any questions or concerns regarding this process should be directed, as always, to our house manager, Mrs. Babbage. And then, of course, the Swan Song password is scratched out. It's interesting how many people I've seen figure that one out. You know, staring at it really closely and zooming in on it, they've been able to decipher just enough of it to sort of pick it out. I saw someone guess the password just because they'd seen a whole lot of bird statues that were swans, and they'd seen like music notes of things, and they just randomly, amidst like a dozen or 2 dozen other things they tried, they're like, what about all the birds and the music? Let's do swan song. Click, done. So they didn't actually read the password. They didn't figure it out from any of the clues in the game except the exorbitant number of birds and like the music pages that they had seen. That got them their password. I thought it was amazing. For now, since we don't have the key card, drop this. Although I should be on the lookout for the utility room soon. This way first, and in the interest of the utility closet, let's go ahead and hit the dark room. Why not? Dark room, of course, the second you walk in, it's going to go black, so we're going to check over here first and see what we can find in the hopes of getting the utility closet, but not right away. All right, chapel, perfect. All right, it's another fun one to talk about. All right, where are we beeping? I'll say no one ever seems to leave their metal detector in church, like just lying in a pew. Everyone just leaves random coins and keys lying on the floor, which I find annoying. So the chapel, a private sacristy, as ornate as the most lavish rooms of the estate, is watched over by 8 Azeran angels depicted in stained glass. This room was more of a tribute to her uncle's vanity than it was to his faith. 8 angels, huh? It's only 7. So the question is, where's the 8th one? And specifically, why is it not in this frickin' room? Because I find that description slightly misleading. Because yes, there is the 8th stained glass of Draxus, but it's not necessarily in any relation to this room. So I don't know that I would qualify it as being watched over by the 8 Azeran angels. The image that's back behind the altar up there of the sun is actually just is a stained glass instance of that same sunburst. There's not really anything hiding back there of interest, which kind of ticked me off when I used the free roam mode to go back there and look at it, that there's nothing there. Like all this time, the thing's been covered up, and I was kind of hoping there'd be something there. You see the 2 white things in the corners that could be the tips of wings. They're just birds. And then you see like some of the white rays coming down the side, and it's just a stylized version of that same sunburst, which doesn't have any relation to Draxus. So I don't know where they're getting, where the claim is that all 8 are keeping watch on you, or whatever it said in here, watched over, because the 8th one is not here and has no representation here whatsoever, except it being a red room, which is only tangentially related to Draxus. The Mount Holly stained glass that's up top, I've seen someone pointed out again in that same Sanctum chat on the Discord server that is a green representation, which could lend towards some interpretation that Lady Arave was originally from Nuance, for instance. I'm not sure I buy it, but there's not really another explanation for why that's green. So it could very well be the case. I have no idea. So the different paragons, of course, let's see if I remember all the names right off the top of my head. I always get, let's see, Rinna, number 1. Number 2, Joya, of course. Enjoy your lunch. 3 would be, I think that's Dauja. 4, Vea, Paragon of Ash, who was very big in first era Arindia. 5 would be Mila. 6, Lydia. And then 7, Arindia. And the interesting thing about her over there is that you see her with the crown and the scepter, which is technically forbidden under the 6th era edict of Fenares, that you're not supposed to show Arindia with the crown and scepter because of her association with the royalty from the previous eras. The shield that she has there, you can see the other side of it in one place that I'm aware of, in one of the history slides in the classroom, has 3 marks on it that are reminiscent, at least, of the 3 bands that are on the Sinclair family crest, leading to some theories that the Sinclair family is specifically related to 1st and 2nd era dynasties of Arindia. So, yeah, we have no way to prove or disprove, but it is an interesting connection. Yeah, now the 8th one is not back there, Clef. That was always my assumption, but alas, it's just the sunburst. And I was so ticked off when I realized that. The statues here, we don't see this sort of priest's mitre dude anywhere else that I can think of offhand. Some of the rest of the statues we do see. This one, the crown she's wearing is actually very, very close. I don't remember if it's the exact one, but it's very close to the crown that Jariena is wearing in the bust. It has the same sort of diamond up at the top in the tiara appearance. This one, of course, there's a smaller version of her down in the basement. And there's a ginormous version of him out on the east lawn. So I'm planning on doing one of these days. I've got a bunch of screenshots together. I just haven't formulated my thoughts. I'm planning on doing a Statues of Mount Holly video one of these days to really look in depth of all the different depictions of where you see not just these statues, but also the same image in artwork and that sort of thing. Not a chance am I going to put the West Wing Hall there. I need that. None of these is really great for what I want right now. Stew. I guess worst case scenario. Well, I'm going to save the gems, so we're going to have to go bedroom. All right, bedroom it is. First, day 1 bedroom always has this trunk, by the way. Now, there's a lot of interest in this room. First and foremost, this frickin' wardrobe drove me nuts for... I spent probably 20 minutes trying to click on various things here, because, dear God, this looks like a giant puzzle box, doesn't it? Mainly because of that block of wood right there. Looks like it should do something. The drawers, there are actual spaces in the wood under there, like as if they were drawers, but I can't see that there's any sort of texturing or reason for that. No utility, I should say. The bedroom. A familiar room that you may have slept in at some point, at some prior visit in the past. Like most bedrooms of the estate, these quarters offer you a little rest and recuperation during your long days exploring the surrounding rooms. Now, the thing I find interesting about the bedroom is I theorize that Herbert stayed here when between the days when he was too old to sleep in the bunk room, but had not yet inherited his title as Baron and taken over the master bedroom. And the reasons for that, of course, are the fact that there's a picture of his mother by the nightstand. He didn't have any other women in his life except Clara, his sister-in-law. So a nice picture of his mother by the nightstand makes a certain amount of sense. But also, this is the room where the Baron's bafflers are buried. So there's a special tie-in with Baron Herbert Sinclair and this room, the fact that the bafflers are buried here. So I suspect that this was probably his room. There's not really another bedroom that he would have slept in necessarily in those intervening years. So I just kind of assumed that this was his bedroom for, a decade, 2 decades. I forget exactly how long the time span is. Because he would have inherited his title in his late 30s or early 40s. So he spent a couple of decades needing a place to sleep that was not a bunk bed. So the Reddington postcard, I remember Dredd said that when he first got here and with the magnifying glass, like he pored over this thing and found numbers were in the windows and like made out in the shapes and et cetera, et cetera. I don't think anything has ever come from any of that. The fact that you can see this nice clear picture led me to one day take the telescope up to the overlook where you can see Reddington in the hopes of maybe zooming in, but no interaction there. So as far as I can tell, like there's not a functional reason for this except to say, hey, look, it's Reddington. I really like a West Wing Hall or something. Well, the utility class doesn't do much good there now, does it, house? Try for something. There we go. West Wing Hall. Yep. All right. Room description: the West Wing Hall. The west wing of the estate has been closed since the death of Lady Epson. It's unsurprising, therefore, that this hallway, in its neglected state, features boarded windows and dust-smothered furniture. So Lady Epson died. What year was that? 1980. Well, look at that friggin' paper. 1983. Staff notice: June 15th, 1983. Out of respect for the late Lady Clara Epson, the West Wing will be closed until further notice. While the floor plans associated with this wing have not been removed from the pool, we ask that staff members refrain from drafting them during this period of mourning. Likewise, anybody's guess what the rest of that memo says. Yeah, so that was 1983. We do know that Clara was laid to rest on June 11th of 83, which doesn't technically tell us when she died, because you're not necessarily laid to rest on the same day that you die, but within a day or two, I imagine, of June 11th is when she actually passed. And yeah, and again, the windows are boarded up. There's not really a whole lot else to note in this room. As I said, most of the hallways don't really have a whole lot to them. The garage? Nope. Oh, we're doing this, huh? Alright. I need my garage. Okay. Entering and exiting out through the west-facing private drive, the garage serves as a more practical and informal entrance point to the estate. Well, the dead-end, quote-unquote, in the type, which is sort of a hint the fact that this door opens, it's not really a dead end. So we don't have the car keys. But this note: Christoph, this is the third time this month you and the car have been gone when your services were required.
I don't care how long you've been driving for his lordship. Your absences must be accounted for, Mrs. Babbage.
And obviously, the absences are part of the moonshine operation. Kristoff is driving them into town and dropping them off. And when you look in the trunk of the car, you see the moonshine, and you know that that was where it was loaded up for transport. One of these days when we have the car keys, we'll come back and we'll cover the rest of that in here. But one of the things I like about this room is the fact that the layout changes just based on which direction you draft it, because the up door is right here, and the electric box for powering the garage door moves over here, etc. If you come in from the side, it's just one of those little design details that I find fascinating about this game that they accounted for, and it flawlessly, which way do you see it? All right, now we need to be on the lookout for that utility room. I'm not trying to do anything spectacular with this. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, game. Okay, utility closet. One benefit of the restoration of old buildings is that it allows the owners to update and add modern amenities. The utility closet and the circuit breaker box within were set up when gas-powered lighting was retired and replaced by a more fashionable home electrical system. The change from gas power to electricity also coincides with, is mentioned in the orchard with the smudge pots and the fact that they've moved away from the gas power in the house. If I remember right, there's a reference out there in the gardener's log. And the vac puzzle here for the vac indicators is based on more Jai boxes with the pushing of buttons to change colors and affecting what happens to the ones next to you and that sort of thing, which I think is kind of cool. Just a way of tying in why do things work certain ways in this game. So we're going to turn that one off. I'm going to remember this one off the top of my head. There we go. Been a while since I've had to do that one. And dark room. Back on, please. The Gemstone Cavern has been permanently unlocked and added to your campsite. Starting tomorrow, you start each day with 2 gems. Gemstone Cavern was only really discovered after the excavation work had been mostly completed on the house itself. The eastern cavern was opened up in the last, year or so of the mining, I think. Let me see if I can find the exact time frame on that. Yeah, in the foreman's logs in 1918 is when, or no, excuse me, early to mid 1918, the gemstones were discovered in the eastern mine, and so they began the mining operations. And by May of 1918, they're stopping the excavation of the house, and then by June, everything was done with the excavation, and the remaining stuff is being moved over to the mine. And I believe Laser mentioned earlier if the the cavern thing was going to get done, and the answer was no. If you take the jackhammer out to the gemstone cavern and you start digging, it gives you like a probability chance that you're going to collapse the whole gemstone cavern. And every time you dig, the probability goes up, and if you keep doing it, you will collapse your gemstone cavern. You will lose your daily 2 gemstones, and no, there is no way to get it back. You have to start a new game file if you want your gems back. So it's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Find a YouTube video of someone else doing it if you're curious, or if you just want to make a file and burn it just for the experience. I've never done it. I've seen the video of it happening. It's amusing. And now, as long as we're here doing this, we've powered. We're gonna head outside. I really prefer to have a shovel. gonna go see what we can do in the dark room first. Now, since I turned the power off and back on, the item in here has spawned. Until the power has gone off and been turned back on again, you don't know what item is going to be in here. There's always something, unless you made quarters yourself for the day. So in this case, we got battery. And first things first. Dark room, a room dedicated to photo processing, development, and printmaking. This room is outfitted with safe lights which provide red illumination to which the photographic material is insensitive. However, due to a faulty installation, the safe lights often overload with their circuit capacity and blow a fuse. There's some interesting photos around the dark room. This one, of course, is key to progressing in the game in a reasonable manner. It gives you the combination to the orchard. The date on there is 11/28. And the only reason we know that's a date and not just some random numbers is the fact that we know that 8 dates crack 8 safes. The interesting thing, though, is that is the family tree that's down in the root cellar. You see a heart carved into the tree between Clara and Simon, right above Mary. It's not the exact same shape as this heart, but it's close. And obviously it doesn't have a date written inside of it. And so, and I mentioned it in my lore video that romantics might think that the two of them fell in love and that they carved, the heart and the dates in here. But it actually kind of makes sense, realistically speaking, that, they might have been the ones to carve the heart and the date is something significant to the two of them. And then in the wake of Simon's death, the tree was cut down, but the date was still used as an homage to whatever it was originally commemorating. Because we don't really see evidence of trees getting sick and dying anywhere else on the estate, so there's not a particular reason why that one tree would have to get cut down. You can lock the gate with some other combination if you want to. So the fact that that date was used on that lock means it's probably significant, and if it had something to do with Simon and Clara, then it would kind of make sense that the tree was removed not just to hide the combination, because again, use anything, but the tree was removed in the wake of Simon's death, either by Clara or Herbert's insistence. But then, as an homage, that was the date that Herbert chose to put on the padlock. At least that's what I like to think about it. Again, we have zero evidence of that, but it makes a kind of sense. Because, some of the dates, why this date in this place? Not all of them have an explanation. That one does. Could. Got a nice little close-up of Grunkle Herbert. His bathroom selfies. Part of more than one theory, I believe. Why the bathroom? I love the different versions of this photo because, as far as I can tell, they mean absolutely nothing, but it's interesting that there's like 3 different versions of this with different portions in focus based on what you can see. And that one's creepy as hell with the younger maid. And the question I always had on this one is, which one of these would be Bridget? Is Bridget the young maid? Or is she the older one on the left, which kind of lends itself more to the timeline of, collaborating with Kristoff and Denny. Kristoff certainly seems to have been with the house for quite a while. And Babbage's comment is like, I don't care how long you've been driving, you still got to be here when we need you. Yeah, it sounds at least like he's probably been around for a while, and so an older maid working to coordinate between the two would make sense. The younger maid also would make sense because Bridget worked as the bartender for a while in the speakeasy, which we'll get to on another day. So one of the many things in this game that drive me nuts is the fact that we have 2 people, 1 name, and 0 way to actually tell the difference for sure between the 2. I don't see a wedding ring on either of them, so it doesn't indicate one of them may have been sleeping off estate as opposed to staying in the maid's quarters, for instance. Another print of the same orchard. Shot. We got our first image of this run of Clara, Lady Epson. Print notes. Herb HS has requested yet another print of her ladyship, I assume for one of her rooms in the West Wing, as well as an enlarged print of the enclosed photograph. He said the last development was too dark, so keep an eye on that. I want to say, is that Anne's handwriting? I don't have an analysis on the top of my head, but I want to say that that's that's Anne Babbitt's handwriting, but I could be wrong. If anybody knows offhand, let me know. More bathroom selfies. The infamous Hartley note, which, what is it? Green memos in Hartley's room. Green memos found in Hartley's room are always false, which then, to me at least, and I'm sure, I know there have been questions, this always begs the question, is that a blue note in a picture that we only see in red, meaning it's true? Is it a red note that we only see here as red, which means it's false and that the green memo is actually true? We don't know, because this is the only version we ever see, and it's in, the entire thing is in frickin' red. But yeah, poor Hartley there with that crazy left eye. His left. Not sure what the hell is going on with that poor man. But yeah, Hartley served with with the family for about 40 years or so, and half of that was as Herbert's personal valet. And that's a word that I see trip up a whole lot of people, especially when they consider there's a chauffeur, and they're like, valet service, chauffeur, why does he have two drivers of his car? A valet is a manservant, and it's basically, he makes sure he gets dressed every day, takes care of his personal stuff, etc. It's not a driver. That is a word that trips people up just because they're not familiar with it. When I read it, obviously I knew it because a lifelong knowledge of The Princess Bride. All right, Wesley, never had a valet. We'll give it a try. Sleep well. I'll most likely kill you in the morning. It says he brings in Wesley as his valet on the Dread Pirate Roberts' ship. And so that was where I first learned that word, at the young age of God, however old I was when I first saw that movie. Let's see, we've been in the storeroom. We've now covered the garage. We have been to utility closet. Alright, and we've done the dark room. I think that's it so far. Oh, we did the West Wing Hall. Yeah. Okay, yeah, these first few days, especially as we're finding new rooms, are going to be a little slow and tedious, and I apologize for that. As we get more into the game, there will be a lot more gameplay and less discussion of some of these things. Alright, I don't really care about the... Well, yeah, we need to get the observatory going. Alright. And we're going to read through the fixed stars in a minute. Alright, gotta raise it first. I've been doing no spoiler runs of Blueprints Bingo for the last month or so it's been a while since I've actually gone after the planetarium when I walked into this place. Bit of 4? Yeah. This one, of course, was... I think this was actually hidden by Randolph, and he mentions it in one of his letters. Find the planetarium. Still cannot hear that without immediately kicking off Metallica in my head. Oh, the other way's faster. Damn it. Now it's not. 3, 4, 5. It's only 4 clicks if you start it, if you go the other direction from that other spot. North Star. Yay. Alright, quick view through fixed stars. This is actually the earliest specific date mentioned anywhere in game lore, or the earliest year specifically mentioned in game lore. Everything else is first era, second era, third era, this happened, blah, blah, blah. 1809 is the first year, the earliest year specifically mentioned in the game. The Fenaries there, of course, Fenaries didn't exist in 1809, so presumably that's just a original publication date, modern publishing house of a republication of the book, is the only explanation I have for that, which it makes sense at least. So, The Fixed Stars, The Stargazer's Companion to Constellations by Richard Witt. This book contains a complete star base, the list of constellations, and the observed effects that accompany the appearance of each one. Depending on the number of stars that can be seen in the sky on any given day, different constellations of various sizes may be visible, sometimes more than one on a single day. This book, a solid base for astronomy, will help you easily identify these constellations, impress your friends, and discover the joy of stargazing. Whoever wrote that needs to learn about the Oxford comma, for the love of God. North Star, of course, 1 gold. The Twins, I love that one. 2 trunks. Slice for 3 steps. Diamondus Minor. Southern Cross, the mixed blessing there. 4 doors more common. Multi-doors, but 4 doors specifically. And of course, we need the Southern Cross on a specific event. Farmer's Apple, great in combination with Classroom Day, of course. Clavis the Key. Diamondus Major, love that one. Draxus. Dead End Rooms. There's a good use for him later on. The Sail. Florealis. And that's as far as this book goes. So the green rooms are more likely to gain special flowers, which is interesting that this is an observed effect. In 1809, when this book was first written, for special flowers, which were developed by Denny Ravane in 1980 something. Just saying. What is it with people and their stupid Twitch bots? Yeah, so again, the fact that the Florealis constellation has been known for almost 2 centuries, and apparently green rooms have been creating flower gems, but maybe those are mystically appearing ones, and Denny's are the ones that actually grow out of their plants. No idea. Like, why were Denny's so special if Florealis has been a known constellation? Anyway, let's see. Yeah, you can see the planets up top, which I overlooked for God knows how long playing this game. I saw them up there and just stopped paying attention to them and really didn't even realize that that's what was going on up there. And then, of course, here's a smaller mobile that has all 5 planets. No depiction of the moons, of course. But let's go back to the question I had about the globe earlier. So let's see, here is Arch Aries and Arinda Aries. So this lines up essentially with the map that we get in the classroom, as far as, this is north, this is south, and how far in relation to each. The globe that's on the dashboard for the game, the intro page, is different. The orientation is slightly different, apparently, and I didn't notice that until I was looking at it this time. That pole, come on, give me the North Pole there is actually pointing almost to where the hand is. Like, it's significantly off from what you see here in the globes, which is weird. But anyway, no other real details on there. Let's go ahead and drop this. Oh, we didn't read the description for the observatory, did we? We're not going to get very far with the rest of it today, but let's go ahead and hit the lavatory because we discussed it earlier with Herbert's selfies. All right, first the observatory here. Housing an impressively large telescope, Mount Holly Observatory is a window to the world above and beyond the clouds and sky. Through its mirrored lens, even a novice stargazer will be able to distinctly appreciate the wonder, signs, and constellations that punctuate the tapestry of night. A quite poetic description for this room, I think. And the ostensibly useless lavatory. A room one might go to great lengths to avoid showing guests, despite them always probing for its location. I mean, why would you not want to show them the bathroom? They gotta find it someday. Obviously, Simon needs it daily for all those apples he has for breakfast. And of course, the hidden red room effect of this room is that nothing will ever appear in this room. No items will ever spawn randomly, etc., etc. The way around that is if you shelter the lavatory, it's actually a surprisingly great room to have, for all it being a dead end, but you get 3 items if you shelter the lavatory, and that's why it's on a whole bunch of bingo cards as something to do specifically is shelter the lavatory. So, but aside from that, there's not a whole lot else to say in here. I know there's some windows that appear based on where it is drafted in the house, against one of the outer walls. That fortunately they're high enough windows that there's no risk of someone easily peeking in and seeing you while you're on the red throne here. All right, this should be our currently last door. What are we gonna give for this game? All right, we'll go ahead and talk about the den. First and foremost thing about the den is that I'm in the camp, as I said, I'm naturally a skeptic about things. I'm in the camp of that the game, there really is nothing more about the den than it's just the den. I will happily be proven wrong the day someone actually proves something. The den features prominently in a lot of ideas and theories about how it relates to other rooms, and if they are proven right, friggin' fantastic. I would love that. But I'm in light of no concrete evidence otherwise, I'm in the game's not lying when it says it's just the den. There are interesting things here, of course. The swans, this box that really for sure frickin' looks like it should be something, but apparently isn't. I love this clock, by the way. Very cool. We're gonna grab our dice and coins, and then the den, which is not a room that's in a whole lot of houses these days anymore. At least not by that name. It's sort of it's a name that's gone out of style in modern life, I think. A more traditional family room, warm and inviting. So comfortable one might assume that the countless clocks surrounding the sofas are placed in a futile attempt to avoid inevitably wasting the entire day here. And assuming this clock actually ticks, audibly in where you hear in reality, this would be a room that I would friggin' fall asleep on these couches in an instant. I guarantee it. Hey, let's go ahead and do the planetarium, I guess. Well, no, we got redraws. I'm still really kind of hoping for a shovel here. In which case, we're going to go for the secret passage and go for yellow rooms. See if I can get a commissary. We're running a bit shy on steps, unfortunately. I'm not really paying that close attention to things, but... Secret passage, a small, quote-unquote, dead-end room with an ordinary bookcase that exemplifies that the best means to escape the confinements of our world has always been through books. Confirmed, Simon has to climb into a book to escape. You got another one of these rooms, a quote-unquote dead end in the type, of course. Fortunately, it does count as dead ends when you're trying to do the dead end challenge. There's a lot of stuff in here, but not a whole lot that really means anything. Obviously, there's another version of this room that has a lot more purpose. But I avoided the secret passage for several days when I was first playing this because I thought of it as a room that you would go in and it would connect you to another room of a color somewhere else in the house, not a go through passage like a normal drafting room. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh, God, that was a really dumb thing. But, you know, I didn't know. All right, we are going to try for a commissary. Crap. All right, well, we're not doing shovel stuff today. All right, laundry room and a standard hub of domestic toil complete with washers, dryers, and a state-of-the-art steam-powered unit leveraging the newly installed steam ducts leading from the boiler room. Despite its innocent appearance, this inconspicuous space is rumored to launder more than just linen. So, which, the steam ducts are actually fairly easy to overlook, for an early player especially. Once you get the boiler room and turn it on and see them, you're like, all of a sudden, you start remembering where you've seen them or noticing them after the fact. But, yeah, there's like, most people that I've seen play have no idea the steam ducts are even there until they get the boiler room up and running. Let's see. I can't do anything with steps, so I can't help myself with that because this isn't the powered one. So, but I like these. I like you can really abuse the laundry room for some amazing synergy with some things. Specifically, the Blessing of the High Roller. Is that the one? Yeah, I think that's the one that you can just like absolutely abuse the crap out of it. Okay, quick call-outs on the garage now that we're outside. The placement of the garage and this driveway obviously changes depending on how far north you draft it, which threw me for a while because I saw the bird bath and the bird bath wasn't there the next time I drafted it. And then it was the next time. And like I didn't really appreciate what was going on out here with the movement of this. When you come out here, that peak thing, that room right there, at this point you might think that that is room 46. It's more or less, it's close to the right place, but room 46, if I remember correctly, and I'm doing this off the top of my head here, has the crescent moon on the top of it on a steeple that looks just like that. And if you draft the garage far enough north, you can see around the corner, looking here, you can see around the corner of where the 9th rank is, and there is no 10th rank there. You cannot actually see a room 46 from out here. And that coincides with what Denny Ravane says in his logbook, is that you cannot perceive the 10th rank from the outside. The exception to that is if you're in the clock tower looking out, a high enough clock tower looking out, you can see room 46 sticking out from the rest of the house, which is an interesting discrepancy. The other cool thing is if you draft the garage north of the secret garden, anywhere north, but as long as the secret garden is south of it and you can access it from out here, you can see the little stone alcove that houses the the wheel. You can see it's sticking out from here, so it's a clue that it's there if you happen to see it before you bash that down. But you can also access the other side of whatever you can see from the inside. So if you've done the weather vane and you've turned on the west lever that you get by default, if you walk outside, then you can access the east lever on the backside of the secret garden, which I used in dare mode or curse mode. I don't know. One of the challenge runs that I did on my original game file, I did it to get the win. I exploited that. Alright, so here we have the west gate, permanently unlocked. Just gives access, although it conveniently does show an image of the West Gate Bridge over here. Or the West Bridge, rather. Where something is buried beside. And, okay, well, we might as well... practically, I want the tomb first. Or the hovel, because I don't like the hovel. That has an upgrade disc available. that can get me access to a shrine blessing right off the bat. All of which will pop up again, so I'm going to do the Hovel because I don't like dealing with Hovel Day. Well, that's fantastically unuseful right now. The watering can! First time entering each green room, use the water to gain 1 gem. Limited capacity, you get 3 uses. Of course, you can refill this in the kitchen, and it has a very specific use much later in the game that we'll get to eventually. Our first blue flame. I think the schoolhouse was the first flame that I found in my actual game file, if I remember correctly. Alright, now of course, the hovel. It's a squalid dwelling on the edge of the estate belonging to one of the groundskeepers. And as Laser and I were chatting about towards the beginning, the house has to be redrafted at will during the middle of the day sometime, because otherwise Denny, as the original inhabitant of this room, would never be able to sleep here and then get his tools out of the tool shed, much less sleep in here and then the next day access the still in the trading post, or get to the foodstuff stored in the root cellar that he used to make the moonshine in the trading post. Like, if you couldn't change rooms in the middle of the day, then none of that would have worked. I don't know where he would have hidden the roots, the foods from the root cellar to use them the next day trying to draft the distillery, much less where he would have slept in the meantime. So there has to be a mechanic for that sort of thing. So here we have one of Denny's notes about trying to get into room 46, excuse me, staring at the 45 there. And the two interesting things about this are the fact that the date that's on here is July 5th or May 7th, depending on how you want to consider the dates. I'm an American, so that's July 5th for me. And he tested his full house theory, no look, as expected. That's right in the middle of a time when he's not, according to his logbook, actively trying to find room 46. It's before he's really trying to get there. This is 1990. July 5th. Let me get to my note on this one. Yeah, so July 5th, his Hovel note, but in the gardener's logbook only picks up in February of 1990, and he's just talking about the gems. And then in October of 1990 is the next entry in the logbook, and he's talking about, oh man, I really should have quit. So he's not trying to get into room 46 at that point that we know of. He's just been griping about his gems. He may be starting to think about it a little bit, but as far as the logbook is concerned, he's not actively working on it at this time, and yet he's making notes about how to get to room 46. He's looking at the layout of the house. And the other interesting thing about this one is the 45292. Yes, that's basic math numbers, and sort of could be teaching you how that stuff works. But that's also coring. And 40, first number is blue, is positive to get things started. Then the other three numbers in the other three mathematical operations. And 45292 coring yields 8. Coincidence? So it's interesting that he's got that written there, but also the fact that that sure as hell seems to be demonstrating an understanding of coring. And then, of course, notice of termination. Dear Mr. Ravane, your half-hearted dedication and maintenance of the grounds have been greatly appreciated. However, I regret to inform you that your services as the groundskeeper at Mount Holly will no longer be required, effective immediately. This decision has been made after careful consideration and is based upon repeated observations and documented instances of neglect in the performance of your duties. The state of the green rooms in particular has deteriorated significantly over the past few months, which reflects poorly on the rest of the staff.
You are required to vacate the hovel by the 20th of March, ensuring all tools and equipment belonging to the estate are returned to the tool shed in good condition. Your final wages will be settled promptly upon completion of these instructions. We thank you for your time and service and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Anne Babbage, House Manager. Yeah, I love that. Your half-hearted dedication and maintenance have been greatly appreciated, but you're fired. Like, Anne's got a bit of a sharp wit on her, and I love it. So there's not often stuff out here. I was actually very surprised to see the watering can sitting there. I've only seen that once, maybe twice before. So, all right, 1 or 2 more stops before we call it a day, whether we want to or not. As long as they're running past. Make a wish. Yeah, there's no description of the grounds. The bird baths will drive me nuts until the day I never pick up this game again, or their secret is at long last revealed that there is something to the bird baths. I have always believed this, I will always believe this, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. Alright, gas line number 2. So, and as we discussed earlier, if you bring the jackhammer out here, you can get gems, but at the risk of collapsing the whole thing and forever locking off your daily gems, so don't do it. Here's the last of the equipment for the new mine. I don't think we're going to need more than this, especially if we're just going to limit excavation to 2 stones per day. I was told by the engineer that getting greedier than that might risk the structural integrity of the cave walls, so I suppose we'll have to adhere to this expert opinion, at least for now. We managed to remove all but 1 minecart from the old tunnels, 2 of which were too rusted and worn down to be of any use up here, so Dave went ahead and made the call to scrap them. I'm not sure the foreman is going to be too happy about that, but hopefully you can smooth it over. Now, there is still 1 more cart down there, but it's locked on a short track and it's way too difficult to move from the reservoir side. It's a bit awkward because it's blocking the passage, so I suggest someone move it from the other side if they can get over there. The boss informed us that there are 2 other ways into the site from that side, but I think we're going to leave that for someone else to finish up if the old man really wants it done. Telling us there are all other ways to get there, of course. So, Gemstone Cavern, again, once you've gotten there and checked it out, not really anything to that place. The missing tree. I love the postcard that says, "I'm stumped." Of course, the November 28th combination, which I believe is the only one. I've never actually tried it, and I should have maybe tried it there, but that's the only one of the numeric dates that you can't enter flipped. It's always 11/28. It's not. I don't think you can put 28/11 in there, can you? I've never tried. I'd be interested to know, because it specifically says 11/28 on the tree, so I don't know. And we're turning off the smudge pots here, which, if I didn't stop to look at them, but you can see the black smoke coming out of them. That will be gone. Of these little smudge pots. The sundial that never seems to change time. I'm pretty sure that's actually literally just like painted on there in a practical sense of the game. And the gardener's logbook for the current gardener, Robert Nagula. When I first came to the estate in the capacity of the new groundskeeper, I was a little dismayed to find that my predecessor had kept no notes, no logbook, and no record of any kind regarding the various gardens and green rooms of the house under his care. As a result of this improvidence, in the first few months of my post, I suffered a number of embarrassing professional blunders that I believe could have been avoided with even a few scraps of imparting wisdom from the previous groundsman. To that end, I will make an effort to make some record of my dealings on the estate, inasmuch as it pertains to horticulture and general tomfoolery. Robert Nagula, groundskeeper. Among my many commission duties, I have been tasked with the conservation and oversight of Mount Holly's alluring grounds. My domain stretches from gate to gate and encompasses the apple orchard, entrance drive, and east yard. Fortunately for my workload, the maintenance of the west grounds has not been a priority since Lady Epson's death and the ensuing closure of the west wing. Nevertheless, I take some pride in my work, so I shall still endeavour to brush the west path weekly, even if none but myself take notice. In addition to maintaining the grounds, there are 8 green rooms within the house that require some level of upkeep and light groundskeeping. The majority of these, I discovered, are only draftable on the perimeter of the house along the east and west wings. The terrace, patio, veranda, morning room, greenhouse, and secret garden all fall within this category, which should be an indication for those who have never, have problems locating where to use the secret garden key. That's a good clue. Soil survey. One of the first tasks I undertook as groundskeeper was to conduct a survey of the various plots of soil underneath each slot on both the east and west wings of the house. And while I would have preferred a full survey of all 45 plots of the house, it was clear that the inconvenience such an undertaking would produce was in no way worth the extra data, especially considering that rooms that would benefit from the survey only ever appear in the wings. To quantify soil quality, I measured the soil's capacity to support crop growth and maximize the promise of high yields. The survey ended up taking 2 weeks due to some difficulty reaching the higher ranks, but the project was well worth the effort. As suspected, the room position has a direct relationship to the amount of fruit spread from the gardens and the amount of flowers that can bloom in a greenhouse. The barren ground there, of course, features in a couple of theories about barren versus baron, B-A-R-O-N. There's a few theories about drafting rooms there. Smudge pots. A few years ago, the Baron made the long overdue decision to switch from gas lighting to electric power. The installation of the new system was a substantial undertaking, as almost every room in the house had to be equipped with new fixtures and wiring. Thankfully, the renovations did not extend beyond the mansion's interior, and all the lamps and equipment used outside of the house are still connected and powered by a gas line, including, but not limited to, the orchard's smudge pots. The smudge pots found along the apple trees here in the orchard are a critical necessity thanks to the cold temperatures and the high altitude of the estate. These gas-burning stack heaters prevent frost and should be kept on during the winter months to ensure a daily yield of apples. When the smudge pots are not in use, the orchard's gas line should be turned off to conserve resources for the estate's other gas-powered machinery and appliances. Obviously, the time of year makes absolutely no difference to the game, but as I mentioned during the utility closet, or when we read the description for it, this ties in with that, the fact that the utility closet was added more recently as the manor was being upgraded. After a few months of idleness, I finally have a new cause to champion, and I have submitted a request for change of scenery. Specifically, I would like to replace the statue of Orinda currently in the cloister with a much more appropriate angel Rinna. After all, as beautiful as the statue is, shouldn't the greenery of Mount Aldy be governed by the paragon of gardening? Though amused, I did not think Anne took the request too seriously, though she did humour me and listen to me rave and pontificate on the subject for the better part of our lunch yesterday, and she wonders why I avoid tending the cloister. Truth be told, I've forgotten how to access the inner garth and am too scared of chastisement to probe for the particulars for a third time. This is my best rendition, pretty good considering I have only ever seen Renna's depiction in the chapel. So, this is, of course, one of the ways you learn names of statues and that sort of thing. The one thing I'm curious about on his is that his logbook, unlike Denny's, is not dated beyond this original date. All the rest of these logs, none of these are dated, so it's some good information, but it's not a logbook as you would normally think of, writing daily or weekly logs in, like Denny's is. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out the gem stand that's here, leading to many theories about this being where one of the red letters was stored, as well as possibly one of the gems, and what happened to that gem and how it got into the world, and why is this gem stand here? The theories are myriad. So, and each as likely as the other, as far as I can tell. Again, the frickin' bird baths. Let's go check out our tent and call it a day. And look at the stars.
dozens of them. All right. Campsite. Due to the rules set forth in your great uncle's will, you are not allowed to stay in the estate overnight. Luckily, however, your scouting skills have been put to good use to fabricate a very respectable off-site sleeping quarters. Call it a day anytime you want, etc. And of course, there's a little swim bird in there. I wonder what books he's got. And sadly, that's going to call it a day for us. For day one. Arguably one of the worst day ones I've had in a game in a while. Because I'm not trying for any specific outcome necessarily. So, quick review on the rooms we touched. Not do any of those. Did not get the Nook. Music room, locker. We did the den. Trophy room, pantry, rumpus room, vault. Nope. Drawing room, study, library, chamber, marriage, pool, drafting studio, boiler, pump, security, workstation. Nope. Cook check, mail room. No. Observatory we did. Lavatory. Got the dark room. I don't think we got any more orange rooms in there. We did the laundry room, yippee skippy. And we didn't get any of the greens. We did the bedroom. And the Hovel. Okay. Quick on the other thing that you keep track of. We use the silver key. I think that's it for all this stuff. Yep. Okay. Day 2. Now that we've gone through several rooms, we won't have to stop and read through those and discuss. So we'll see what other new rooms we can talk about as we go. Hopefully make a little more actual game progress as we go here. All right, what's next? All right, might as well do the root cellar. I don't have well, actually, let's do tool shed. Oh, yeah, okay, now we definitely want some gear rooms today. Gear wrench. Each time you draft a mechanical floor plan, you may permanently adjust its rarity. And I didn't read the shovel, sorry. Looks like it could be useful for digging. But a tool shed is a simple shed with a variety of tools used by the groundskeepers in the course of their duties. Simple enough. Quite a lot of interesting stuff out here, some of which might be useful for Simon to be able to pick up and carry around, like that hammer. Possibly a saw or two. Take a couple of doors off the hinges with a screwdriver. I've done that more than once in my life. But we have a shovel now. So we have our first microchip. Small data microchip buried in an old jar. Looks like it could be useful to be plugged in somewhere. And as long as we're wandering around out here, let's go ahead and go pick up the conservatory. One of my few actual complaints about this game. And there's a few gripes that I have about it, RNG in the moment that I actually don't mind because that's how the game is played. But legitimate actual complaints about this game. I want more music. There are places like you can just barely hear some of the music starting to kick in now. It's really low. But it's there. But there were huge chunks of yesterday when I was talking about stuff when we were just wandering around drafting things. Unless you trigger a specific song, like going to the observatory or something, there's no music. And the music for this game is freaking gorgeous. but there's so many times when there is no music, and it's glaring at times, the silence. And I just want more of the music, like at all times. I want some sort of music playing because it's gorgeous and I love it. All right, let's see what we got here. Not gonna do a guest bedroom yet. We have the most important tool on the given day, of course, at this point is the shovel, and I have no money, so... Oh, let's get to our pantry. We haven't done this one yet. Alright, the pantry. A well-stocked pantry is always the true test of a large estate, and keeping Mount Holly's wild gamut of ingredients and supplies stocked has always been one of the primary priorities of the house staff. The pantry has one of the funniest and most amazing to pull off experiment interactions imaginable. During the race that Dredd and I did of this game, he did it, where he got the experiment to stock the pantry with fruit when he ate apples. And then he got, I believe, the secret garden. And so and had a couple other apples that day as well. So when he came in here, this place was lined with fruit. And then the little apple section over here, every time he ate an apple, more fruit would appear. And this section just filled with oranges. And then the bananas lined up over here and wrapped around and were lining up over on this shelf. And then more apples were appearing, so more fruit and more fruit and more fruit. And if I remember the numbers correctly, he got more than 400 steps by eating fruit in the pantry that day, because it just kept triggering more and more and more fruit. And he might have had salt. I don't think he had the silver spoon. So he just legitimately just ate so much freaking fruit that he got 400 steps, and it was glorious to behold. Oh, one thing that I have not been doing, and shame on me for not doing it like I had intended to do. The BlueTents. I was going to be reading the BlueTent memos when I go into Blue Rooms for the first time, since I'm not going to track all the BlueTent memos down toward the end of the game. So, toward that end, just going to quickly touch on the ones we've already been to. The spare room, there are 12 different potential spare room upgrades, which it took me a while, like, I had a brain fart when I was first thinking about it. I'm like, no, there's only 9. Well, except the 3 that you pass through on the way to those 9. Obviously, the first one you pick between orange, purple, and green, and then each of those 3 has another 3 for a total of 12. When we actually get to upgrading the spare room, we'll talk about the actual upgrades and the similarities of all of them, and a very specific difference in one of them. Let's see, parlor, but we're in, not yet, pantry, we're in right now. Okay, so parlor. The parlor BlueTent will just tell you which box the gems are in, kind of a cop-out. The billiard room of the original, for the, that you find is the bullseye operation can trigger multiple times. Okay, fine. Useful, but not earth-shattering. The closet. The closet was one of the original 46 rooms of Mount Holly, which we know that to be true from Lady Orbe's atelier and the blueprint. And the storeroom, it tells us there are 6 permanent additions, which by the time you unlock BlueTents, I don't think I've ever seen anyone unlock BlueTents and have that not be their 6th edition. I'm sure someone out there got that before finding and raising the satellite dish. I've just never seen it firsthand. But at the very least, the fact that it tells you there are 6 means, oh, okay, I did find them all good. I can stop worrying if there's 2 more secret ones that are going to pop up. The garage, of course, the license plate on the car is an acronym, SWNSNG, which that one is prominently featured in several conspiracies and explanations, and why does it mean that in the Blueprints Discord channels. They are way more in depth, and the possibilities they come up with are mind-blowing and amazing. Let's see, we did the den. The sin associated with this room is often associated with the use of one's time. So, was that sloth, I think, is the one that the bin that goes on. Pantry, that's where we are now. There is a letter missing, in quotation marks. So obviously the missing letter is a theme in this game, appearing all over the place, not the least of which on the... Come on, where are you? Where's the cafe? There it is. The coffee. Cough. Cough. But not coffee. Because there's a letter missing. So yeah, the letter missing is a running theme in this game, of course. The utility closet, I actually mentioned this one briefly, is that the DC Power's designs for the VAT controls were partly inspired by the gift they received from their client, an original Morjai box. So Herbert gifted them an original box, and so that was used by, as I mentioned, that as part of the design of the VAT controls. For the observatory, the BlueTent is the largest planet in the night sky, is named after the Paragon of Ash. So the largest planet is Vea, and it's sort of a hint of, number one, it's learning the names of the paragons, but it's also sort of a hint towards the planetarium and the interactions that you can do there with the telescope. And I think that's it for that we've hit so far. All right, so I got to remember to do those as we go so I don't have to go back over these. Okay, on with the quest. Nook, we have not done Nook yet. Alright, the Nook description. A snug corner reading room which serves as a quiet private place for guests to spend a few hours of their afternoon away from the hustle and bustle of the staff. Anyway, so the Nook BlueTent memo is that the rook can perform a special move with another piece. So obviously very important when you start zeroing in on the castle puzzle. And the Nook and the rook amidst the books. Panda does love his wordplay. This mountain thing right here is like, for how prominent it is and appears in so many different places, the fact that there's not a specific lore tied to it is actually a little bit maddening. It's interesting at the same time, but it's like, why that mountain? Because that's not Mount Holly, unless it's a very, very basic rendition that doesn't include the very distinct peak, which is why you have Mount Holly, because it looks like that. Let's see here. And I'm going to read this really fast before I forget. A journey noteworthy. As you continue on your adventure, you may want to consider getting something to scribble down on your notes and observations. A pad, scrap of paper, or perhaps, most fittingly, a journal will prove to be an invaluable tool you will not regret having beside you on your journey. I don't remember if this is what prompted me when I first started playing. I know it certainly gave me the idea that, oh, I might actually want to start writing down some notes, because by day one, I really wasn't taking notes. Day two or so, I finally got out a piece of paper, and about a week in, I broke down and started capturing screenshots of everything. So, it made for an interesting early journey. So, and obviously, if you have the magnifying glass, you can zoom in and you can see notes about how to work the dartboard, and about the layout of the house a little bit. I forget whose handwriting it is off the top of my head, though, and I don't have it written down. Damn. I have to remember to bring a magnifying glass in here and look at it at some point. Where it almost always has some dig spots. An ordinary key, thank you. And nothing. Courtyard, a charming spot granting guests a bit of fresh air and open skies within the privacy of the manor walls. The courtyard, of course, appears in one of Alzara's visions, slightly more mysterious than it does here. There's not, in its basic form, a whole lot to this place. It does have a frustrating tendency to give you keycard doors at lower ranks, which are intended to thwart your day and piss you off when you're playing Blueprints Bingo. I don't know how I know that. Yeah, so let's see. We did the Nook. Green rooms. That's our first green room. buried below. Occasionally, you may discover small mounds of dirt in certain rooms in the estate. With a shovel, one may be able to excavate these suspicious dig spots. Fairly straightforward on its face. But still, some people might not have cued onto that, so it's nice to point it out. The patio is a roofed outdoor seating area located along the perimeter of the estate. During the summer evenings, it's not unusual for the grill to be employed while entertaining acquaintances of a more informal nature, which the patio is actually a room I really like. In it, not just because it's an outdoor room and I like the outdoor viewing that's built into this game. I like the gem. I like just sort of the overall idea of it being here is just sort of this informal place to kind of hang out. And then, of course, the fish tank. It's one of the rooms in the aquarium. Then it shows you this. Long buried file cabinet key likely opens up a drawer somewhere on the estate. That, of course, just added a new goal for us to work on today. No need to get the kitchen just yet, so let's just pass on through the bedroom. Nice. Hey! Use it while you got it. The Archives. Countless shelves of documents and towering file cabinets make this otherwise immense space seem small and cramped. These archives contain almost a century of records and files pertaining to the Sinclair family's numerous interests, many of which are sealed and unable to be accessed. And let's use that thing. Oh, we get that in a second. Give me my disc. East Reading Hospital Certificate of Birth. This document attests that Mary Matthew Epson was born to Lady Clara Epson and Simon H. Sinclair in this hospital at 4:05 a.m. Tuesday, the 22nd day of January, in the 6th era, 1958. In witness thereof, East Reddington Hospital certifies the information above is true, as verified by its duly authorized officer of the Fen Aries Registrar of Persons, Lily Rizian Rose and Sarah Dravinian. The one thing that is worth pointing out here, and I had never seen anybody point this out before I noticed it and put it into the lore video. I'm not saying I'm the first person to notice it. I just, of all the people I've seen play, and all the videos I've watched, and all the videos of YouTube about lore ideas and stuff that I've watched ever, I've never actually seen anyone else point this out. But the sigil that's there is not the exact sigil that is found in Realm and Rune or on the Sanctum puzzle. And specifically, the moats that are around the outside are what's different. In all the real official, because the one that's in Realm and Rune, I'm going to go with that's official, that's in a published book, and the one that's in the Sanctum, I'm assuming, is also as official as it gets. Those are real. All the moats of those little mountains, the little pokey things, the twin triangles there, all point in towards the sigil in the middle, the Fen Aries pentagon, excuse me. In this one, and on the forged passports for your mom, you see they alternate in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And so the potential explanation is that this birth certificate is also a forgery, which lends itself towards various conspiracy theories about whether Mary was actually a member of the of the Jayari family in the south, or I think I saw someone suggest that Clara and Simon weren't actually married, but I think that was pretty well established, etc. But the fact that this birth certificate is here at all, that Tonda felt the need to show us this specifically and hide it away in this cabinet, means it's important somehow. And the fact that that sigil is wrong, it's hard to find an explanation that doesn't lend itself towards a conspiracy theory of one form or another. So, but yeah, as I said, I was like, I still have not really seen anybody else notice that and point it out in any lore videos, except where I've one or two people, I think, actually referenced it because they saw it in my video, which made me feel good, yes, but really it's just like the fact that I still have not seen anybody come to this conclusion on their own. I'm sure someone in the Sanctum chat on Discord, if I go back through the chat, I could almost guarantee someone there noticed it before, and it has no reference to me whatsoever, because that's where all the people who have the really, really in-depth, crazy theories have a lot of their stuff there. I would not doubt at all that someone had it pointed out there with no relation to me whatsoever. So I'm not saying this is my one and only thing, I'm the only one smart enough to notice it. I'm just saying it's clearly still not a widely recognized thing because you never see anybody point that out. Anyway. While we're here, of course, we're reading everything. August 22nd, 1985. Marigold wins Herald Literary Honor. Popular children's writer Mary Marigold adds yet another feather to her scholastic cap when she discovered on Thursday that her picture book, Swimbird, had been chosen as the Herald Literary Medal Illustrated Book of the Year. This is Marigold's second time winning the prestigious honor. The previous medal was, of course, for her debut effort. She's no stranger to the public eye, even before her literary success. The niece and closest living relation to her Baron H.S. Sinclair, Mary began using Marigold as a pen name to free her from the political associations that one might make with the Sinclair family. I love the fact that it's her debut effort, comma, cut off. So it doesn't tell you what her debut effort was, or whatever else links the rest of that article to the other snippet that's there for some bizarre reason. It's a weird place to cut it. I would maintain, at least given Mary's political affiliations and the clear political messaging in her book, she may have been distancing herself so that the Sinclair family was not tarnished with her reputation based on what she was writing. You could look at it either way, but... January 27th, 1986. Swimbird author never considered herself a success, by Gail Hermes, Herald staff writer. She confided, "My son was the one that actually got me to start writing. I always challenged myself to never tell him the same story twice at bedtime, and so we ran out of books we owned. My imagination had to take over from there." Marigold has elaborated in previous interviews that her debut book, Red Prince, is based on her son and his inflexible love of the color red, a statement that has been held with much skepticism by the many pundits that viewed that book as a rather thinly veiled political critique of the royal party and their unwavering blind loyalty to the throne. I also call shenanigans, because no parent will ever get away with only reading each story to their child once. Children pick stories and they want to hear that story over and over and over and over again, and I call BS on Mary saying that right there. No parent would ever get away with that. November 11th, 1986. Publisher and author detained by Red Guard, questioned. Caleb Manning and his publisher Philip White were two of 3 dozen names that appeared on the leaked dossier, naming them as a person of interest in the Trinsdale bombing that killed 4 people last Tuesday. Although no group has come forth to officially take responsibility of the attack, it is widely believed by authorities to be the work of the insurgent group RLCF, who also call themselves the Children of Blackwater. Ruffington Press was quick to dismiss the rumors of a statement released on Friday, maintaining that the popular author and Mr. White were simply victims of an unfortunate happenstance, whatever that means. This would not be the first time the publishing house has defended a rogue employee. 3 years ago, an associate editor with the company was arrested for criminal conspiracy, though those charges were later dropped. November 17th, 1986. Marigold drops publisher. Local author and popular personality Marianne Marigold has announced a split with her long-term publishing partner Ruffington Press, citing personal reasons. The announcement came after the arrest last week of fellow author and colleague Caleb Manning, whom Marigold has past referred to as her mentor, friend, and confidant. Marigold is the third prominent writer to distance themselves from the publisher this week. Somebody was seen at the corner. Ooh, suspicious bag under the wave down a local map. This is the third major this year. It is anticipated charged by the Crown. Manning was the last. The trial begins on expected to last up to with grand treason. This clip also I find interesting, and this is my personal theory, that this is not, this little side clip over here on the right is not connected to the rest of the article over there on the left and is out of context, and that this may be referring to the heist itself, and that, or not the heist, rather. No, yeah, the heist. But the suspicious bag under their corner was when they were getting into the car at the end, and the suspicious bag was where the crown is, and that someone recognized Caleb Manning as a popular author and recognized person, and that he and Philip White and potentially Faro and maybe Mary, depending on how far you want to run with this idea, they were captured, and several of them at least were put on trial and possibly killed. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because that's not what we're doing here, but the one thing I will say is that I think the attribution on the photos may actually be reversed, and that if I remember right from working out the heist based on whose name is where at what time on the diagram, that Philip White is actually the one on the left with the mustache and the hair and the glasses, and Caleb Manning is the bald one on the right. Just based on where you see the names on the heist layout. And normally in publishing you would put the names of people in the order left to right they appear in the photo. But I think in this case they're reversed from what you see there. Whoop. February 22nd, 1987. No trace is discovered of Cinca heiress, but search continues. Mary Matthew Jones, the author and illustrator whose fanciful stories are written under the pen name Marian Marigold, was last seen by a close friend around 3:45 Friday getting into a carriage after a late luncheon date at the 100 Bells Tea Room in Tinsdale. Mrs. Jones never arrived home, and the carriage driver cannot be located. Family and local authorities are very concerned but have not deemed the case foul play. It's an out-of-character incident at this point, and we are seeking information. Says who? And of course, the last but not least in this scrapbook, September 2nd, 1987, the Reddington Herald, priceless jewels stolen in dramatic Royal Museum heist. Thieves in the royal capital of Fen Aries have broken into one of the Crown's fabled closed exhibits. These lavish rooms have historically been reserved exclusively for the use of the aristocracy and high peerage, and access has never been granted to those outside noble circles. At least, not until today, as local police and forensic experts have been spotted in virtually every corner of the museum grounds dredging for clues. Excuse me. The museum authorities said they were alerted in the middle of the night by reports of several masked intruders seen breaching the south wall and brandishing firearms, which doesn't match with the description we have from the heist plan. The intruders broke into the museum, subdued the royal guard, and disabled the security system. By the time the militia arrived on the scene, the burglars had simply vanished. Although an official registry of the lost jewels has not been publicly announced, among the treasured artifacts rumored to be stolen is the renowned ruby crown of Arinda Aries, the priceless crown jewel whose material worth pales in comparison to the historic value. If these rumors are true, the evidence may suggest the theft was politically motivated. Yes, we see Manning supposedly enter from the south area on the heist map, and he's the one and only who enters from the south. The others enter from the east. So maybe Manning was making enough ruckus to make it seem like there were more people coming in from the south as part of his distraction, setting up the decoy car, that sort of thing. Who knows? So the archives are interesting because the items that you find here are actually kind of scattered all over the place. So when you hear them, when you're looking for stuff, you really got to look all over the place to really search. It's also prone to having security key doors, which fortunately there aren't any today. But use the key. And this is, of course, is why the archives suck. Because it hides from you whatever that could be, and you're at a disadvantage when planning your next move. Hallway. Simple enough place so far. Hallway, one of the many nondescript hallways snaking through the estate and providing elegant causeways between the more noteworthy destinations that the house has to offer. Even the room description says this place isn't very important except to connect you somewhere else. Let's see. We did Toolshed. Got that. We've not done actual hallway. And Red Room. Archives. Cost of gems can't be all bad. Greenhouse? Oh, drawing room. Nice. Okay. Of course, I don't know how long it took me before I saw this. I figured figured out the candelabra just because I was randomly clicking because I was upset looking for fireplace things that day, and I just went across the thing and clicked and it moved. And I don't know how long it took me before I actually figured it out. Oh, it feels good to be able to open that. I'm not allowed to open safes on the no spoilers run of Blueprints Bingo, so I haven't opened that safe in a month. No, we have our first red letter. Number 6.
Dearest Mary, I know the events of the past year have catapulted you into a world you may not have been ready for. It's cruel the way time rips through our lives, leaving them barren and fruitless like the wind-scarred plains. Throughout this all, I know your principal concern has always been Simon. You didn't need to confide in me yesterday for me to realize that fact. Everyone who knows you understands this. I will take full responsibility to ensure that, regardless of how your current project pans out, Simon is shielded from any fallout and, God forbid, repercussions. A child should never suffer the iniquity of their parents. I, of course, write you for all of this in the hope that I can set your mind at peace when imagining the worst-case scenarios, not because I think such an outcome is likely. No, Mary, I have few apprehensions and far fewer fears. Assuming everything goes according to plan, you should be reunited with Simon again before his 10th birthday, and while 2 years might seem like an eternity to a mother, I've always heard the days pass by more quickly in the East. As for me and you, I have already come to terms that our meeting yesterday was very likely our last. I am too old and too stubborn to ever leave this place. I am too attached to the home our family has built up room by room. Yes, I have a strong premonition I will be buried in red soil under red flags, a compromise I know you yourself would never accept. It's been a joy watching you grow up and getting to know you. Your mother and I spoke of little else during your school days. I know she'd feel the same bittersweet pride I feel now to see you following in your father's footsteps and making the same sacrifices he did. Farewell, my marigold. We may yet meet again. Your uncle, Herbert.
Of course, this letter, the entire red letter chain, is open to debate where some of it lies. The timeline of this indicates that this was written April 15th in 1987. So after Mary's disappearance, but before the theft itself takes place. and the events of the last year, probably, and refer to number one, her publishing of Swimbird the year before, and the extra notoriety that went with that, possibly questions about its underlying meaning, her possibly getting more involved with the RLCF, possibly further radicalized, if they were indeed the ones behind the bombing. So like, there's a lot of maybe, could be, probablys that build up in what's exactly is going on in this year prior for Mary. And the plan, of course, is that she is reunited with Simon by his 10th birthday, which would be 1989, 4 years ago. And so something went wrong, or the plan changed, and we don't know about it. The sheer timeline of this is one of the main points, I think, in favor of the idea that Mary's dead, because with zero word from her whatsoever, that's an awful long time to go past your intended time of 2 years to never see your son again. I'm not saying she's a bad mother if she's still alive, but I think she's probably a bad mother if she's still alive and has no indication whatsoever to her family. I don't care how well she's trying to protect them. Daniel seems like a smart enough guy to keep it under wraps. The end of this page here, of course, is a little weird. The fact that it ends with our family is built up, comma, big long space, room by room. So I know there's been some questions about if there's something that's missing there. I don't believe, or I do believe, people have tried tinting it with still water to no avail. But the last bit on here is the other part that I think is interesting, is that Clara would feel the same bittersweet pride that Herbert feels to see her following in her father's footsteps, Simon's footsteps, making the same sacrifices. The general interpretation I have of that one, at least, is that Simon's sacrifices are involved in his own death, something happening prior to this, so in furtherance of the family's goals, and Clara may have been on board with that at the time, but in the years since Simon's death may no longer be on board with that as much as she was, or at the very least doesn't want to lose her daughter to the same thing that she lost her husband to, but at the same time can't help but feel a little bit of pride that her daughter is doing something and taking steps forward. So hence the bittersweet pride. So if she were still around, I think Herbert's got a pretty good feel for what Clara was like and what she thought about things. So they knew each other for several decades, and they both lived in the same house during all that time. So it's a pretty good. I think they knew each other pretty damn well, and he would know exactly how she felt about things. But the blue tent for the drawing room, of course, is, I know, more or less know it off the top of my head, but I want to get the wording right. Months are slightly longer than days. And I've seen questions about people immediately like, does that mean like a month in the game is slightly longer than 24 hours in real life? That would be a really weird fourth wall break call out for them to do. And really, I think it's just that months, as in there are 4 of these pictures with a gate that large, that's slightly longer than the gate of this old man here, that there are 15 of these, and the date being 4/15. So it's a really, really, really late clue to something that I don't think I've ever seen anybody do blue tents and not have this solved already. But if you didn't, maybe that would be the thing that puts you over the edge to figuring it out. Excellent. Excellent. Again, I've got the wrench, so laboratory is slightly more useful right now than the boudoir, even if it does cost me my last gem here. Okay, of course that's locked with a security card. Okay. All right, we have options. We'll see what happens. Let's see what we got for it. Oh, and I need to read the description, obviously, in a minute. Experiments. Yeah. Okay. Or got one hallway so far. Stars would actually be nice. I'll get all the constellations eventually, so might as well build that up. Okay. A laboratory. A fully staffed research facility furnished with all manner of scientific equipment and measurement devices. This home laboratory provides a controlled environment in a remote location far from prying eyes and traditional safety regulations. Safety regulations? Why would we care about those? Because we regularly irradiate the house with every experiment we run. Apparently. Not sure why that happens, but apparently that's a thing in this world. The laboratory BlueTent memo. That's the lavatory, not the laboratory. It's a later room, so it's not in the early stuff. There it is. Is the Cinca Inc. was founded in 1933, has two facilities, Cinca Labs in Reddington and Cinca Court, which is a 16-story facility located in downtown Oris, featuring 8 floors above ground and 8 floors below. So, just further obsession with the number 8, of course, and it's in the lab is in Reddington, but Cinca Court, which is where I think some of the more business side of things is, all down in Oris, which was briefly, at least, the capital of the country of Arinda Ares, but only during part of the reign of Deslay III, and however long of Deslay IV you want to consider him being actually in charge of things. I typically work over at Cinca Labs, but got sent over here for a month to assist more with the new turbine tests. I think I need some help. For the past 3 days, I've been unable to find the laboratory on the estate. Today was the first success on that front. Can anyone tell me if this is typical, and if so, how do you get any work done? Before I arrived, I was briefed on the way the doors work, but I must admit, I did not expect to be excluded from my new workstation for the first week. Any tips from my fellow technicians would be appreciated. Kimberly Thompson. Kimberly obviously stuck around a lot longer than just a month, and she dominates at the dartboard. And you can see her check out one of the drafting strategies books when we get the library going. So she was still learning months afterwards. I think the drafting strategies was in September. She was hired in like June, I think. And if you play the game long enough and read through the staff memos, Randolph Moore retires as the lead lab technician for the manor, and Kimberly takes over as the lead lab technician. And you find out about that in the staff memos, not through anything else going on, really. There is so much science-y, mathy looking stuff on the walls. 99% of which doesn't have anything to do with the game as far as I can tell. I loved organic chemistry, but I don't remember enough of it to know what some of these chemical compounds are supposed to be. So the one thing obviously that's here is the periodic table puzzle, telling you there this machine requires additional power piped in from the boiler room. So early players like, oh, wait a second, piped in, oh wait, there's ducts. So this is one of the first places people start paying attention to the ducts if they don't have the boiler room yet. And this is also one of the places where, if you're playing, watch this spot right here. I'm pretty sure is where the key card appears. It's very easy to overlook if you don't look for it specifically as you're zipping about the room going, look, no apples or battery over there. And it's very easy to overlook the key card there. Yes, personal experience and pain. And this, of course, the heating and cooling curves. H2O melting point at 0.1 ppt, parts per trillion? I don't know. Not sure what that would... I mean, I don't know what the ppt would be measuring there. Anyway, the test 205 at atmospheric pressure 93 kilopascals. Is that kPa? Crap, it's been a long time. Anyway, in the Mount Holly freezer, lab technician ran off more. So this is just an indication of the melting point, and the fine print there, I believe it tells you that the freezer, the food locker thing is unaffected by the rest of the freezer thawing out. What you got? That'll do, pig. That'll do. Oh, the foundation, the cornerstone of the house, unvarying and unchanging. The foundation is one of the only constants in the estate on which you can truly rely. This natural cavity was hollowed directly out of the mountain itself, with its stone and earth walls displaying an underlining coarseness that the rest of the mansion conceals. So this, of course, is the only permanent floor plan. The foundation was done early during the excavations back in the 19-teens when the excavation was being done on the manor, and the lift was, I think this is one of the few things that's still steam powered in the house. Technically, it doesn't rely on the boiler room steam power, not directly at least, but I think this lift was one of the ones that increased their productivity. And this was one of the, again, since it's the foundation, it's one of the early rooms of the house. And the BlueTent memo for the foundation, which not everybody gets to see, since unless you got lucked out and got a rank 8 foundation, or are unlucky enough to have to move your foundation and then get lucky of the rank 8. The BlueTent for the foundation is, despite the directory being reorganized and renumbered several times throughout the years, the foundation has always maintained its position as the first floor plan of Mount Holly. So again, this is the first thing that was ever done for the house. It gives it a, it's unique in many respects like that. All right, what do you got for me, game? Upgrade discs. Foundation. Nursery. Oh, good. This one has a couple of name changes. We haven't found the original floor plan yet. So, fortunately, the original room description for the nursery does not change. Where are we here? If you do the 8 steps, the room description doesn't change at all. The nurse's station, the room description becomes this floor plan, originally designed for use in medical emergencies, saw a significant usage in 1966 when Mount Holly briefly served as a school. Fights, flus, and final exams laid up many students on the cots in this room. So again, we haven't done schoolhouse yet, but in 1966, when the schoolhouse out in the outer room schoolhouse was closed, that's when all the classrooms were designed, and briefly, for I don't remember if we know if we know when it closed, but we know that the March after that is when the schoolhouse in Reddington actually opened. Sometime before that, we don't know exactly when in 1966 that it closed. But it was sometime in that school year, and then wrapped around into March of '67 when the schoolhouse in Reddington was officially opened. And coincidentally, and I use that word with very thick, bold quotation marks around it, the schoolhouse was opened when Herbert was 8 years old. 46 years later, the schoolhouse was closed when Mary was 8 years old. So we have 8, 46, and 8 occurring all right in close proximity to each other. I'm sorry, not 46 years later. Herbert was 46. Sorry, wrong number there. But yeah, Herbert was 46 when the schoolhouse was closed. Okay, and then the last one here, the indoor nursery, the room description changes to: the love of floriculture has never been more evident than in this nursery, where new buds are cradled and nurtured as they grow. 2 prominent flower beds house a variety of valuable blooms, cultivated for the Baron by the former gardener, Denny Ravane. So this was part of his work, apparently, was the development of this green floor plan as the indoor nursery. Which is interesting, but I tend to prefer, just for general purposes, just the plain old nursery with the 8 steps. This used to have a game-breaking mechanic with an experiment, where every time you look at the directory or something like that, you lose. Every time you do something, lose 10 steps, and then blah blah blah. And so I forget the exact interaction, but you get what idea. But so you lose steps, and then you walk in here, and you get 20 steps back. And then when you get down to less than 10, you walk in here, you get 20 back, and you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And you can trigger the experiment unlimited number of times. And so people would rack up 100 stars, or clear all the crates in one go, or any number of things that they abused it. And that's why the experiment was changed. So now it's the next 10 times you do this, then you get the experiment result. So it is specifically because of the interaction with the nurse's station. So this is less useful than it used to be. It's still kind of a cool option, but I very rarely need it for that. I just prefer this so that I have good bedroom days with lots of extra steps. And no car keys. And locked. Okay. All right. We're pretty much done on this wall. But this is our first trip in the gymnasium. Gymnasium, a half court intended for basketball and racquetball, which is seldom used by anyone apart from the junior staff during their lunch hour. At least they did before Mrs. Babbage disallowed the practice after noticing how worn out staff members were after a game. I don't know how long. I don't think I've ever played a proper game of racquetball in my life. I used to play it against the garage door with my brothers, but not a proper game. So, gym, of course, is one of those rooms you hate and don't mind later on in the game once, 2 steps lost here and there isn't that big a deal and you can turn it off, etc., etc. So the gym is much worse early on than it is later in the game. We have Hovel, sports as the game. There's nowhere else that this is mentioned that this would provide any sort of lore or clues for, unfortunately. Presumably that's the name of the sports brand somewhere. I don't know. It's an orange ball. Maybe there's a sports company in Korarka that does basketballs. And, the rest of the day is kind of going south at this point with the red there. So let's just get Maid's Chamber in the directory, talk about it, and then hopefully never ever see it again. All right, so the Mila statue here is one of the things that can end up in the Lost and Found, and it gets taken from this room and ends up there. There's a couple things to point out here in the room, but first things first. Maid's Chamber, a typical example of the accommodations for the live-in staff of the estate. It appears this particular bedroom belongs to one of the maids. Well, we know there's 2 maids, so not sure which one lives here in the one tiny little bed here. So we don't know if it's Bridget or the other maid, and we don't even know which of the 2 maids is Bridget, for that matter. So this is one of the rooms that I hate most in the house because I prefer, like any good player, I like luck and getting lots of items and equipment to work with, etc. And this room is antithetical to everything I like doing in this house. So, staff notice. The day we all dreaded has finally arrived. It is with unprecedented sadness that we inform you of the death of our benefactor, employer, and master, the Baron of Mount Holly, H.S. Sinclair. Any staff who have an interest in attending services may contact Mrs. Babbage for details. In following the instructions left by the Baron himself,
Effective immediately, all work at Mount Holly is suspended. All live-in staff will have 1 month paid leave and must vacate the premises by Friday, November 6th. Signed, Mrs. Babbage. And I'm pretty sure this notice, went out technically on November the 4th. Just because timeline-wise, day one is obviously November the 6th. On November 7th, November 6th is the reading of the Will and Testament, and that's the intro cutscene, essentially. And that's when Randolph cuts off all the electronic connections to the house, etc. And November 5th is the headline stating that the Baron was named as the provisional heir, which predates what I just said about the reading of the will, so is some question about that one, technically. I forget how I reconciled the dates there to make that lay out that way. But the 7th is on Saturday, Friday is the 6th. If this letter was written on the 5th, referring to tomorrow as, vacate the premises by Friday, the 6th, you could say it that way. It just sounds a little strange. So I would say that this letter was probably written on the 4th, and that's why I'd say by Friday, which is 2 days from now, which is not that odd to say it that way. And obviously it can't be written any earlier than that because Herbert passed away early the morning of Wednesday the 4th. So it would make sense that this was written and put out to the staff right away after Herbert's body was found, wherever it was found. There are theories. And so it would make sense that this went out on the 4th. And here we have the staff picture, which, again, since Tonda did not give us clear naming conventions on a lot of these, a lot of this is guesswork. But near as I can tell, going left to right, I think the one on the far left, and again, my hands are reversed, so ignore this. The one on the far left is Kirk Darren. The next one in is Hartley Rota, which we're 99% certain of that one thanks to the Hartley's room picture in the dark room. Then one of those two maids is Bridget. The other maid is unnamed, so we have no idea whatsoever. Babbage is obviously the woman sitting in the front. And then directly above her, I think, is Randolph, and then Kristoff, and then the other maid, and then probably Denny Ravain on the far side. Again, we don't know for certain, but based on their dress and, etc., I don't expect Denny Ravain to be in high collar suit and tie. That sounds more like someone who's the lead lab technician. Denny doesn't strike me as the slightly older appearance guy in the middle, and so sort of reasoning things out, that seems much more of a Randolph Moore, because Randolph is getting towards retiring in a few years. And so this picture would seem to predate Denny's firing. The other option, of course, is that that's Robert Nagula on the edge, but I would think it's more likely that that's probably Denny. But again, we don't know for certain, which is really frustrating. More info, Tonda, please. So, yeah, that's not really much else to say about this room. I hope I never draft it again. This is based on experience watching other people play this game. This is the first safe that I think most people crack. Generally, and I've seen them crack it without knowing the whole 8 dates crack 8 safes, just by virtue of seeing this postcard. They see, oh, there's the safe right there. This is Christmas. What if we just plug in 1225? And so I've seen people, not knowing that the combinations are supposed to be dates, figure that one out on their own. Which, I forget if I was one of those people or if I had the dates part at least. I think I had the dates cracked,
dates crack safes. I think I had those 3 words when I got this one. So it was like date, Christmas, date, let's try it, and it worked. So I at least had that much when I was doing this for the first time. And we are definitely going to need a fresh cough drop. Let's see. Sushi says, I hear Maze is pretty out there with some of the solutions. Maybe that's where some of the more outlandish theories come from, but I like the more grounded, solution-oriented stuff. No shade to all those, though. Yeah. Maze apparently was absolutely insane, some of the stuff that's in there. I have never opened Maze. I've never looked at Maze beyond screenshots I've seen other people reference. I prefer to keep my sanity and acknowledge that I'm not that good with that sort of puzzle to even try it. So, all right. Daniel's letter. Herbert, I was distraught to learn that you have chosen to omit the details of our dear Marion's disappearance from the public record. It's no surprise to me that the royal court would want this embarrassment kept as quiet as possible, but I'm shocked that you have so little regard for your niece that you would play the king's scullion and stoop to kissing the foot that treads upon her memory. She gave up her family, her fortune, and her life, and all you can do is think of your name. Having never had a family name nor fortune of my own, I cannot personally condemn you for faltering in your commitment to make the same sacrifices she did. But for the love of God, do not by that same display of weakness clutch your petty assets so tightly that you undermine the cause that she forfeited everything to further. Our countrymen must be made aware of the price she paid, and must be made to see the color of the flag she flew as she rode into the darkness of 100 nights. To deny her story is to deny her life. If through your silence you bless this betrayal, our son Simon, your heir, will inherit a fortune of lies and will spit upon your grave when he learns your cursed foolishness. Needless to say, we will not be coming for Christmas this year. Daniel. And this letter probably marks the last time, prior to this, that Simon ever came to the manor. Because this would have been, obviously, December of 1987 after the heist, and then we know that there was a gap there where Simon stopped coming to the manor during the summertime like he used to as a kid. I mean, he's still a kid, but... and so this letter, sometime prior to this, was probably the last time Simon would have actually been here. And so as of 1987 Christmas time and then on, Simon probably never came back to the manor, except maybe like for some rare thing. But as far as all evidence shows, he never did after this. And the things that are in this letter that are worth pointing out, obviously we have the quote-unquote disappearance from the public record. And I've seen some people questioning that Daniel is mad that Herbert isn't backing Mary's political works, etc., publicly. And it is sort of what he's saying there, but from what we know, there is zero mention anywhere that Herbert is supposed to publicly back anything that Mary is doing. Her efforts are all clandestine. She's not supposed to end up in the public spotlight as a result. She is supposed to disappear and then maybe, and this is all supposition, maybe reappear someday in a couple of years. But there's no indication anywhere that Herbert is supposed to make any sort of public backing for what she's done or the cause that she's furthering. And so I don't think that's what Daniel is saying here. And this is my personal interpretation, that the wording here seems to point towards Mary actually being dead. And saying, okay, quote unquote disappearance, but also, she gave up her family, her fortune, and her life, not just her public life or blah, blah, blah. She gave up her life, not just the, social life. She rode into the darkness of 100 nights, if that's not a euphemism for death, come on. And the fact that she paid this price seeking the color, and this is the color of the flag she flew, etc., etc. Like all the indications here are that Daniel believes Mary is dead. Now, we do know in other written materials that Mary says that everyone who knows me thinks thinks I'm dead, and the people who know me well think I disappeared, or something that, or the people who know me most intimately think I just disappeared, or so. I forget how that goes, but anyway, so there is a sliver of space there where she could have fooled Daniel at this point, and even Daniel doesn't know what her actual outcome is. That Daniel may think she's dead, but she's not. So that's not definitive, at least. But here, at least as far as Daniel's understanding, it sure as hell sounds like Daniel thinks she's dead. And is mad at Herbert for going along with whatever the Crown's story about what happened, because this, the royal court would want the embarrassment kept as quiet as possible. It's not an embarrassment that Mary and Marigold disappeared. It's a mystery, it's whatever, but it's not a embarrassment for her to have disappeared somewhere, and etc. It's not an embarrassment if she's murdered, necessarily, unless, the circumstances of her death. But it is an embarrassment if she was recognized, caught, or otherwise, known to have participated in the heist. She is a member of the nobility, just by virtue of being a descendant of House Sinclair, and also House Epson. And so she is, one way or another, she is in a couple of noble lines, not necessarily royal lines, but noble lines at least. And if she is known to have participated in this theft, that's an embarrassment. And so covering up that embarrassment and her role in the theft would be something that the Crown is interested in, whether she's alive or dead. And the fact that the theory that she is also dead means Herbert is going along with some story from the Fenairs Crown saying she had nothing, or she didn't have anything to do with this, or she died as part of this other thing, or whatever. Like, they're covering up her involvement in the theft, and Herbert's going along with it, is what it sounds like to me. And I know there's other interpretations of this, but near as I can tell, that is the most logical interpretation of this letter, and what we know about her disappearance, and what we know Herbert knows about her disappearance. So that's kind of where I fall on this. There's more details in the Blueprints history video, the lore video that I put out. There's a little bit more explanation around that, but that's sort of the long and short of it. Okay. The guest bedroom. Original description. A small bedroom maintained and kept available for accommodating weekend guests and impromptu visitors who find themselves compelled to stay the night. Apparently the beds in here are not that comfortable, which is unfortunate for a guest bedroom. And the other thing we have here in the original version of this room is a letter from KL.
Sinclair, I just wanted to write you a quick note thanking you for the weekend. I had a thrilling time on the hunt with Lord Evanson, whose peculiar personality somewhat made up for your own absence. I also got to appreciate your new game in the billiard room. It's been ages since I've seen the billiard room in this house, and I was beginning to suspect you retired the floor plan. It was well worth the wait, though, as I always enjoy your mathematical puzzles, and appreciated that I didn't need to know the rules of darts to play your variation. Hoping your health improves shortly, KL.
Obviously, we don't know the identity of KL. I've seen theories, but as far as we know, we have no clear indication of who KL actually is. And the fact that they went on the hunt with Lord Evanston Evanson, not Evanston, sorry. I went to school at Northwestern, which is in Evanston, Illinois. Near as I can tell, this one coincides there's a book checkout of Sightseer's Guide to Reddington on November 18th, 1987. So the same year as the heist, months later, and actually shortly after Mary probably left the house for the last time after having been there for the heist. And then, so the fact that, because Kale is saying he's here for a hunt with Lord Evanston, we sort of assume that if someone's name appears here and someone's name appears here and they're not a regular member of the staff or a visitor to the estate, that those things probably happened at the same time. So this letter would probably then have been written at that November visit. And the description, welcome back from ads, by the way, the description here that Herbert was absent. Two possible interpretations really for that is either number one, he was just flat out not here. He may have been in Reddington for sick because of his health, which we know is a thing. He may have been out and about. This time after the heist is one of the time periods when he might have done his 8 Realms tour, and I've seen some theories that he used this time to help Mary escape and smuggle her out, but I don't think the two of them left the country together, just based on the correspondence we have between them around this time. I don't think they left at the same time, and so he might have met up with her somewhere else, but we don't have any indication of that for sure either. But he could have been absent from the house, and KL and Lord Evanston he gave them permission to come use the manor for their hunting trip. The other explanation that matches up is that that the 8 Realms tour doesn't necessarily match up though with Hope Your Health Improves, because you don't go on a worldwide tour and tell your friends, my health is bad, that's why I'm gone for the next 8 months. But he could have been in Reddington. That would line up if he was visiting one of the hospitals there or something for some treatment, which we know he did. The other explanation, though, is simply that he was here with them, was here for the weekend at the same time, etc. But when they wanted to go hunting, he's like, I'm not feeling it today, so I'm going to stay here. Y'all go ahead and have hunting. That lines up with KL and Lord Evanston go out on the hunt. You were absent for the hunt because of your health. Hope you're feeling better soon, blah, blah, blah. Either interpretation is possible. I don't know that it makes a huge difference either way, unless you are specifically trying to shoehorn in when was Herbert here at the house, could he have been somewhere else and passed it off as being sick. Always possible. Again, we know very little for sure about that sort of thing in this. Yes, I was the one who made the lore video, Sushi. So thank you. Appreciate the compliment there. So I will, to my own embarrassment, admit that when I saw this on day one, when I first played this game, I knew the dartboard was a mathematical puzzle, and gave up on the dartboard before solving it for the first time on day one. I came back and in between day one and day two, I thought about it and kicked myself in the head a couple of times and solved it from then on. But yeah, for a while there, I had number of dartboards drafted, 5, number solved 4, and I felt terrible about that reading that in the library. Hey, dining room. Excellent. All right, dining room description. Dining room, an intimate and warm room with a large dining table boasting a serving tray with a silver dome cover. Dinner is served here each evening, or whenever you make it to rank 8, apparently, even if it's at 9 o'clock in the morning. The BlueTent memo for the dining room. Dining room, let's see, based on its placement in the room directory, is not an early original room because it's not in the atelier. And I don't think it is anyway. I could easily be blanking on some of these, so don't take that as gospel right off the top of my head. But it's later in the directory, which means it's probably a later addition to the manor. That's not necessarily the case, obviously, because the observatory is in the atelier. But if you look at where some of the rooms appear in relation to each other, things like the utility closet, is a later addition to the manor, and that appears kind of in the second half of this. Things that we know were around early tend to be more towards the front. Again, that's not a for sure thing, and we know from the Foundation BlueTent memo that the directory's been renumbered and reordered multiple times, but there is a sort of trend in the placement of some of the rooms here. The dining room BlueTent is that there are 10 different dishes that can be served in this room. Coincidentally, or perhaps not, that is one of the completion things. And we have now had the what was that, the porterhouse steak that we just ate? So there's one. Let's see. Whoa, like clipped through the chair there. Let's see. There's not really a whole lot else to say. Again, there's lots of interesting stuff around, but not anything specifically lore related. This shape, obviously, one you see everywhere. I've seen, and it's reminiscent of Ares horns. I've seen people point out, which they're probably right. Backs of the chairs, obviously, you see the Mount Holly berries that are so commonly seen throughout the house. I was kind of hoping for a conservatory. Let's get another star. Oh, we haven't done this one yet. What's up, little buddy? Herbie Jr. I've seen him named a lot. Yeah, I've given him multiple names and then forgotten what those names were over time, so I've given up trying to stay consistent. So the cool things about this room, and the only reason I know any of these is because of the free roam mod that I have on the Steam version of this game, is there's a lot of titles down there that you just can't see unless you lower yourself down and zoom in on the titles here. And I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but one of the videos out on my YouTube channel is does go room by room in a lot of different rooms in the free roam mod, and I get down close and can read the fronts of the videos. There's a lot of them that are all just the repeat labels for what looks to be security camera footage, and there's like 2 or 3 different versions of that security camera label that you see here and in security. The absolute best one, however, is somewhere one of the 3rd or 4th ones here that I'm pointing at. I believe the name is Sup With Them Runes, which I don't know why I find that so funny, but I do. Some of the other titles seem to be homages to actual movies or books, like mystery books and sort of things, like the Trinsdale Mystery. Sounds like it's I've seen someone said it was actually a reference to some book, like an Agatha Christie novel or something like that. I forget, but yeah, so there's some interesting titles there. Obviously the Turtles of Vera is pointing you towards that as their mode of transportation for this realm sigil. I love to see it coming in here. This is my Atari. Forget the colored bands on here. This was the Atari 2600, I think. And it was the actual Atari was a little more brown than this, but that is absolutely an Atari joystick. This is my childhood right here. That TV isn't too far off of one that I used to have. So this room was actually really cool, and I really enjoyed this room. Again, we see the random wood rocking horse in here. The other thing that's in here that's cool is the journal between the 2 boys. Today is a good day because Simon is at camp and he is not as much fun as my friends. I will not have to share my toys, and I will not have to share my room, and I will not have to share my snacks. Snacks is a very big thing with Herbie, apparently. Having a younger brother is not as much fun as they told me it would be, but today will be a good day because he's at camp. Herbie's mean and really stupid, and today's a good day because I threw away his plane. I also had more fun at camp than he's had in his entire life.
Today is a good day because I got my brother in trouble for reading my private journal without my permission and writing mean things in it too. He also threw away my model airplane in the bushes outside, but I got it back, and if he does it again, he will not get to go to the park on Friday, and I will make sure he gets no presents for his birthday. I don't need any presents because I have my brother's book because he won't stop writing about me, and today is a good day because I know he cries when he can't find his book even though he is older. He's a crybaby. Today is a good day because my brother returns from college and I finally returned to him the book that I took from him a long, long time ago. Hopefully you find it as hilarious as I do. I honestly have no idea how we survived sharing a room. All things being said, I still would rather have had a sister. Congrats on the diploma and welcome home, Simon. Which I think, again, this is exactly the sort of thing brothers do. I can't say I ever stole or wrote in or anything with my brothers, but that's the sort of thing we did to each other. You know, you tease siblings. I don't know how sisters are. Never had a sister as a kid. Picked up a couple of sisters along the way. People I just sort of adopted as a sisterly person in college. Got a couple of sister-in-laws. That sort of thing, but never grew up with a sister. Alright, what do we got here? Planetarium could net me a couple of stars here, and we haven't been there yet, so... Or I can get a free star and see what happens.
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you, archived room. Alright, there's our boiler room. Alright, let's go about solving this really fast, and then we'll read up on the lore and do stuff with it. Okay, get in there from the side. Even if it's blocked, you can still hit that lever. Now, the boiler room, of course, obviously these plates are, no one still has anything clear what to do with them. They do extend a surprising distance up into the sky and down below what you can see in this room. They don't wrap around anywhere that you can see. There's literally is just a line of them going straight up until they cut off somewhere, and the line at the bottom cut off somewhere well below the ground. So I don't know the mechanism that they're supposed to wrap around in the in-game, much less what happens to them as they're running, because I did not look at them moving while I was in free roam, so I don't know if that would have made any difference at all. Powering this, obviously, well, no, I already have a lab. There's nothing I could power and get out of this, unless I get the laundry room again, which this might help me get. None of those is the laundry room. None of those is the laundry room. Oh well. Terrace, let's just add it to the map. Or I should have done the archives since it wasn't really any good thing it could do to me. Crud. Oh well. Oh, I need to read the boiler room when we go back in. Okay. Oh, and welcome in Jack Grimm. It might be top few for room contents. Yep. And brothers and... We don't know what the middle initials are for either kid, Sushi. It's a bit suspicious and coincidental that we have H.S. Sinclair and S.H. Sinclair, so I know that's a popular theory that we have Simon Herbert and Herbert Simon. I don't know. Maybe Tomas and Arave just weren't that original in their naming conventions, but you know, we don't know what their either one's middle name is really.
All right, the terrace. A terrace balcony overlooking the grounds, providing an ideal spot for appreciating all of the verdure and greenery that the estate offers. And you just get to kind of look out and see, wait a second, there's a path out there. Maybe I could get over there someday, which we've always already done. I actually made it outside on day one through the garage, just not knowing what I was doing, obviously. Made it all the way out there, walked up to the west gate, and said out loud, I believe, hey, that would be a really good shortcut to go back out to the front of the house, it looks like. But I didn't get close enough, or didn't notice, or whatever, the hand icon, so I never clicked on the gate and didn't open the gate on my day one of the game. And so I didn't open it. And it took me like another week before I actually got the garage set up again to come back out here and open it. So I felt like a proper idiot once I understood everything. Okay, and back to the boiler room. A utility room serving as a central hub for controlling the heating and steam power supplied to various rooms of the estate. Steam power is conveyed in the estate through steam ducts that run through select rooms. These floor plans must be drafted in an alignment that will facilitate the steam traveling through the house to reach its intended destination. The obvious discrepancy there, or difference, whatever, is the red box here, which powers the two red boxes elsewhere from the product developed by Cinca Incorporated, or no, by the not by Cinca, the Scripps, I can't remember their proper name, but anyway, the miner company that was doing all the excavation. They developed the red steam powered boxes. So somehow that it gets from the boiler room to those boxes remotely to power them. The boiler room was implemented and built into the house during those early days after the house was created. So after the atelier, because it's not a part of the atelier, but after the excavation had started on the manor grounds proper, they built in the boiler room, and that's what powered technically it's what powers the lift in the foundation. And then they use the gas power to power the chest elevator that actually Tomas Sinclair built fairly early in the excavation process. I think it was in the first year is when he started designing it, at least, and I don't think it took that long after that before he built it. It was used more for people than for tools, obviously, because it's a bit on the fragile looking side, being kind of glassy. But that one, of course, is gas powered because of all the valves, but the foundation was steam powered. Let's see. Yeah. Sushi says, yeah, seemed odd to me, and was better than some of us. I was just talking to someone making it to the credits before opening the ground. Oh, jeez. That's impressive in a way, because that making it that far without the outer room, or even potentially even knowing it existed, depending on what, when they saw what, that's actually impressive. Okay. Office. The late Sinclair's personal home office, a room he used exclusively for business affairs and the running of the estate, a task he took increasingly more satisfaction in overseeing in his later years. Office was also popular with Anne Babbage, and you see, of course, the picture of her sitting at the computer here, and you get the indication, it's like, for all the importance of room 46, Herbert didn't spend a whole lot of time there, because that would be annoying as hell to have to worry about levers and getting to it, and worrying about who in the staff was around and would notice, since it was supposed to have been hidden from staff. It's like, room 46 is an extraordinarily important room that he really could not have spent that much time in, or dealing with, for that matter. So it's kind of interesting just how important it is, and at the same time, how rare it must have been for him to actually do anything there. Upgrade disk. Let's use this. Ha 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 ha. Upgrade disks. That one's done. What do we got? Ooh, love the boudoir. Okay, the boudoir. None of the upgrades to the boudoir change the description at all, so there's nothing to discuss on that one. And in cursed mode, I absolutely went with the apples, because steps. No. Always dice for me. Alright, and then of course, there's Mary. There's Mom, chilling out in front of the mountain. And I think, supposedly, like, just based on her age, you don't see her wearing the necklace yet. She's wearing something high-collared and it's closed, but I want to say this is supposed to be about the time she was going to school in Kararika. And, so there's no exact date on this, obviously. There's no way to know for sure, but it's based on timelines and how young she looks. That seems to be about right, but nothing definitive. And up here, of course, we have grandparents, Simon and Clara. We have the Bridget. Please check if any of the books matching these titles are available for purchase in Reddington. Flight of the Queen, March of the Count, Fall of the Lord, Passing of the Barons, Herrings of the Major. Had a little trouble reading the Baron's handwriting, so I'm not sure if the last title is intended to be Hearings or Herrings, but knowing Herbert, I suspect either would be suitable. And the antechamber lever in the greenhouse is broken again. I don't think there's enough time to put in another work order before Simon arrives, so just make sure the west and east levers are operational. Now, this is obviously written after Herbert's death, because they're already making plans for when Simon arrives. So, just timing-wise of when that note was written. Interesting. Activate the safe. The solution to this, obviously, if we count small gates, so we count the small... There he is. Not you. No, not you. There he is. The small versions of count gates. I had been in this room and looked around, couldn't solve it, obviously didn't know what I needed. I don't think I knew the dates yet the first time I was here. And then I was in the foyer and I noticed that someone's name was Gates. And so, like, I think my second time back into the office, I was like, wait a second. One of these guys is named Gates. And we have March of the Count. Or no, it was the Count, not the Gates part. It was just the fact that he was the Count. And it was like March of the Count. One of these guys is the Count. I don't remember who it was. There was a Count, though. And so, like, I didn't even know his name was Gates at that point. Or, I didn't remember it. It was like March, Count, so 03, and just started plugging in numbers. And like, well, there's one of these, two of these, and three of these. So March 1st, March 2nd, March 3rd. And so minimal brute forcing. Not technically brute forcing, just, kind of, sort of. All right, and this is our next red letter, which I need to mark down as well. Red letter, we did the boudoir, and now we're doing the office. Brute force the office safe using March and going from there. Yep. It's a common thing. Once people figure out the whole date connection, then March just kind of jumps out at you, but then where do you go from there? Fortunately, it's March 3rd and not like March 17th or something where you have to iterate through all the things before you find it. Okay, number 8. Now this one is interesting. Dear Mr. Sinclair, thank you for promptly answering all our demands, not involving the police, and allowing this unfortunate transaction to transpire as smoothly as one could hope. And while I'm guessing you had hoped to never hear from us again once we had given you back the envelopes, we felt that one final red letter of our own was merited given the circumstances. Hopefully you will not be as careless with this missive as you were with the others. Correspondence this incriminating should be kept in safes, not desk drawers. Let's first put your apprehensions aside, as I am sure another red envelope is the last thing you expected to find on your desk this week. No, we are not making more demands, and no, we do not have copies of the other letters. You are already more than generous and accommodating, and the least we can do is fulfill our end of the bargain. So why write to you at all? Why incriminate ourselves further if we already have what we want? In a word, principles. After reading your eloquent reply to our initial note, it became apparent to us that there had been a few misunderstandings. This letter is intended to clarify some of those points, and hopefully they will place our schemes in a softer light. First, we may have gotten too excited with the colorful language of blackmail, but our goal was never to terrorize, despite what you may have believed or interpreted as thinly veiled threats towards your young nephew. I want to personally assure you that there was never any tangible danger. If we gave any impression we would hurt the youngster, it was meant only in the very vague sense of hurting his social prospects. And yes, while we admit that our word choices might be questionable, enough so that it would be reasonable to accuse us of being intentionally misleading, we hope you believe us when we tell you that this was not a calculated ploy to elicit payment. However, as payment has been received, there is nothing to be gained by scrutinizing the questionable ethics that were employed in our extortion of those funds. Little defense can be mustered on that score. Additionally, any judgmental tone you may have detected when we discussed the content of your stolen letters was entirely unintended. We want it on record that we do not consider ourselves superior to you and your family in any way, and are in fact entirely sympathetic to the underlying cause that the letters pertain to, and you thought this letter couldn't get more incriminating for us. Again, we feel guilty as sin, and only time will tell if the financial recompense will outweigh our culpability. Even though you will never hear from us again, we hope this parting letter will result in you thinking of us and our dealings, if not favorably, at least sympathetically. Sorry for the inconvenience. Forever Anonymous, X. Now, the interesting things about this. Number one, I've seen people theorize that this was not Denny, that this was a separate round of blackmail, making 3 times that we know of that Sinclair was blackmailed. I don't buy that for a couple of different reasons. We don't know, obviously, for sure. None of this is definitive until Tonda says otherwise. But number one, this sure appears to be written on the same typewriter as a lot of other things in this house, and that currently sits in Sinclair's master bedroom. The chopped off at the bottom of the lowercase a's. I think there's one other thing somewhere in there, but basically there's a couple little things in the type that are specific to things typed on that typewriter, apparently, and would be weird otherwise. It's referring to plural people, our demands, our this, our that, blah, blah, blah. It's not unheard of that Denny would just say our to disguise the fact that it was just him doing it. We already know that he's hoping that people are stupid enough to think that only an idiot would only steal his own contract, and therefore maybe it's not Denny who did it, even though his is the only contract that was stolen. So Denny's not necessarily the brightest crayon in the box anyway when it comes to this sort of thing. There's no indication that Denny involved anyone else in his blackmail. I don't think he would have involved Kristoff in it, and probably not Bridget. He's holding Kristoff under his thumb. He does not seem to be telling Kristoff what he's doing when he's getting Kristoff out of the house with the Baron so he can break in and that sort of thing. So all indications are that Denny did this all by himself. The one thing that is weird about this one, though, that we don't know, is it's talking about you have your eloquent reply to our initial note. That would imply, if it is Denny, that after the original ransom note of cutout letters that was left in 46, and it makes sense because there has to be some explanation. How is the money going to get from the Baron to the blackmailers? There has to be some other correspondence from Denny, who, barring the more outlandish conspiracy theories about Herbert setting this whole thing up as a frame job, Denny was the one that stole it, and there has to be some form of correspondence explaining, here's where you drop off the money, here's how, etc., etc. Like, there has to be some back and forth between the two in writing. And so my assumption is that Denny sent another letter possibly in a red envelope. We know he had more than one of them, with an explanation of what he wanted, and may have mentioned something about Simon, this vaguely threatening terms, etc. Herbert then sent a response, possibly with the money. We don't, again, timing back and forth when it happened, how the money changed hands, etc. Unclear, but it would make sense that Herbert then sends his strongly but eloquently worded response, saying, "Here's your money. Don't you dare touch my nephew. I hope I never hear from you again. Where do I get my letters back?" That's the indication. That's how I read these things. There are other theories, obviously, that this is referring to a separate blackmail. Herbert strikes me as too smart to let himself get blackmailed 3 times. We know the first one, obviously, in letter number 1. Okay, that's before there were things to blackmail, except something that was totally out of his control. By Denny, we have Denny stole 8 letters and get blackmailed. I find it hard to believe that someone else stole the letters, arranged and got them back to Herbert. Herbert then shoved them in his desk, and then Denny came along right after that and stole them again. Not impossible, but I find that hard to believe. Herbert is just too smart for that sort of thing. The one thing that this does indicate, though, is this is letter number 8. Assuming Denny is the one that stole the letters, we obviously still, to this day, nobody's seen letter number 3. That's the one that's missing infamously. But if Denny stole 8 letters, and his note says he did, and this is one of the letters he wrote after the blackmail and sent back to Herbert, this letter could not have been one of the ones that Denny stole. Which means there's another letter number 8 that we have no idea about at all. And I don't know if that is a logical inconsistency, a mystery to be solved, or just a glaring oversight from Tonda, and we should just move on with our lives. I don't know how to treat that, but it does, assuming this is Denny, it sure as hell points to the fact that there was a different letter number 8 that he stole and gave back, that Herbert then said, Simon doesn't need to see this. All right, last room. Oh. It ain't a workshop, but what do you got for me? Alzara! Man, the archived plans have been actually really kind to me today. All right, here we go. Alzara number 1.
And as it was foretold, I am awakened at the sound of a dropping coin. You find yourself face to face with the great Alzara. And I suspect you wish me to look into your future. The image is becoming clear. I see a boy standing on a shore of white sand. He is looking for something he was told he would not find. I see a black cat tied to a red flag. I hear the wind blowing, but the flag does not stir. I see a door marked by a rogue moon.
It's pointing the wrong direction from everywhere else.
It has no key. It is the door you have been searching for, yet will not find. A lost room beyond the dark waters. What you have heard here has been foreseen by the great Alzara. Until the dawn of the following day, I will have nothing more to say.
Okay. So, anytime you see Simon in these visions, I have not worked out this theory with any great detail, and I may never, but I'm always inherently suspicious that that's not us Simon. It is a metaphorical stand-in for our grandfather Simon. And the reason I think that is related to one of the last visions, really, with the one with the black mirror. But so we see him standing on the shore of the white sand, looking for something that he's been told he won't find. One of the possibilities that I have on that one is that is Simon Sr. looking for the cursed effigy. And if you look at my the video on the Blackbridge lore that I did, I have a little bit more detail about Simon and the tie-in there. And the cat, obviously, I think is potentially referencing Herbert, who is more than once referred to as the cat in this game, and tied to the red flag. Fanaries, that doesn't stir in the wind because it's a stale, repressive government. And I think anytime but I think the other times it's referring to things that you won't find, the door lost beyond the dark waters, etc. There are potential tie-ins that what he's referring to is that you will never find your mother, and there in some of the later visions as well, is where some of that ties in. And no matter how long you wait, it's a door you won't open. It's a door lost beyond the dark waters, possibly of death. The Eclipse that's on the moon there is not the in-eclipse moon that you see everywhere else. That's the Eclipse. And the Eclipse, that's the south. The South Pole is the one that's marked with the infinity symbol for death, and people have not mounted successful expeditions down there because the South Pole is so dangerous for whatever reason, freaking cold, I imagine. But 3 expeditions to the South Pole, only one ever has returned, and they just went around the edges of it. They didn't really make landfall. So the South is death in this. And so that is the south-marked moon door beyond the dark waters that you will never open, you'll never get there, and that may be where your mother is because she's dead. I've not worked all the way through these theories. There are many interpretations of all the Alzara visions. I'm just throwing that one out there because it's something I've been thinking about recently. So, Rumpus Room. A uniquely modern, fashioned gaming room, the Rumpus Room has provided many guests of the estate with countless hours of recreation. The room is outfitted with a record player, 2 television sets, fancy and rich people, a collection of board games, and a mysterious antique fortune-telling automaton named Alzara. And of course, the BlueTent memo for here is the real Alzara was an Eurasian soothsayer who belonged to the royal court of Ares, which means 2nd or 3rd era, I believe. That's how I interpret the eras of the realms. He was banished from the realm in the 15th year of Ejera for a prophecy that did not come to pass. I'll mention these at various points, so this is the first time I'll mention it here. Random things that I've tried to tie in and interpret on that one. Number 1, Ejera, I interpret as it's either the 2nd or 3rd era because it was Court of Ares, and that is the time when House Ares ruled in Arinda Ares, excuse me. And Ejera specifically, I interpret that as an inner era, so not the first era, not the last era. It's one of the ones in the middle. And the reason I interpret it that way is because of the edge say that's in between Nuance, Arinda Ares, Fan Ares, and Araja. There's that sea called the edge say, which I interpret as an inner sea between the different lands there. And I think that the reflexive of that is J, meaning out of, as in J Ari, out of the Ares family. That's how I interpret her name. It's what I'm sticking with until somebody proves otherwise. So, and again, a lot of that's detailed in the lore video. But yeah, so the prophecy that didn't come to pass The recent theory that I had on that one was actually that the sacred poem in the clock tower was actually Alzara's prophecy, and he did it in the Court of Ares, second or third era. The prophecy is referring to fourth era, Dark of the Days Coming Forth, when Arinda Ares falls. And at the end of the fourth era and fifth era, and that's the end of Arinda Ares, because fifth era is the war that turns it from Arinda Ares into Fen Ares. And I say that the Desolé family that was in charge of the fourth era was bad for the realm, and they were in a state of slow decline until Desolé III died. Desolé IV was even worse, and hence the revolution. So I think the possibility that I've worked on, again, not sold on it, just an idea that I had, is that the sacred poem was actually the prophecy that Alzara gave that didn't come to pass yet by the time he was run out of town. We skipped. No, we did. We heard the direction, but we did not look at the emails. The electronic mail, however, and it's a personal thing. I really dislike that these are in reverse order. I find it kind of annoying that they're sorted in descending. But anyway. October 5th, 1993. The VAC indicator lights installed per instructions have been turned on. However, it should be noted that the white indicator light is only displayed after syncing all 6 indicators to purple. If this is not the desired functionality, let us know and we will fix it in our regular service visit next week. Gabe from DC Power Incorporated.
Dear Herbert, we just wanted to let you know that the changes you requested in your will have been implemented and notarized. If your premonition, God forbid, should bear fruit, rest assured that your plans will be executed down to the last detail. McGuire, McKinley, and McDougal.
Now note the date there, October 7th, so we are a month out from day one. This is 1993, so this is this year. We're a month out. Herbert has his premonition for when he's going to die. And he is pretty damn spot on, based on everything we've seen, because there's a note in the study that we haven't gotten to yet that he mentions, can we get all these picture pairings made by next Thursday? Can we, and Ann Babbage's, we'll see in a second, can you give me instructions for next week? He's been making these plans for months or years, setting up the house, and is in overdrive trying to get everything done specifically before the date when he knows he's going to be dead. So either he killed himself and had it all planned out for when, he faked his death, I've seen that theory, and obviously again had it all planned out for when, or he had a premonition, possibly from some sort of soothsaying device that's on the manor grounds, that told him in the end eventually exactly when he was going to pass, within, a day or two window there. Or he just got really friggin' lucky and had the heebie-jeebie vibes and got lucky and was correct. I don't know of any other real interpretations around that. But it is interesting that he seemed to know almost exactly when he was going to die, one way or the other.
Gabe, yes, that is the correct functionality. Also, when you are out here next week, please test that the correct sequence is off, blue, green, white, red, purple. Thanks for the due diligence on this project, H.S. Sinclair.
So we're still in October there. And now we fast forward to Ann Babbage, 3 days before Herbert's death. Sir, you have not left me any instructions for the following week, and you know how much I hate leaving critical plans up until the last minute. As soon as you decide on definite plans for the holidays, please pass a message on to me, either through Hartley, who is valeting for you this weekend, or if you absolutely insist, through this confounded electronic typewriter, Ann Babbage. So, days before, she's waiting on instructions for next week, which doesn't, point to after I'm dead, how you deal with Simon sort of instructions, but just that, she's making plans for the upcoming holidays. We don't know if they have Thanksgiving, but we're, 2 months out from Christmas. One way or the other, we're getting to the holiday times of the year. So, but it's just sort of, it's the Herbert sure as hell seems to know exactly when he's going to die and is planning on it. So, again, whether that means he literally planned the day of his death on purpose and took care of it himself, or had his really strong premonition, because he recorded his will back in March. So that was, 8 months before he died. He had already named Simon his heir and was clearly setting up all of this well in advance. So, I did not do the planetarium, so there's not really a particular day or a room worth ending my day in. I got good use out of that gear wrench. I really wish I'd gotten the workshop today. But I also triggered the experiment a crap ton of times, so that was nice. But anyway, that is day 2 in the books, and reasonable progress. Still a long way to go. It speeds up a bit as I've already drafted some of these rooms and we're not reading the description and discussing the lore and going back through the letters again and all sorts of other stuff. So future instances of this will speed up and just go through the rooms that we need to at that point. As I said, I will be going through the full completion list here, and if you weren't around at the beginning when I showed it, the full list, this is based on the completion race that Dread Red J and I did last November in 2025 when we did our charity stream, 100% completion of the game in November across one weekend. So most of the stuff comes from that with a few additions. But
all the trophies, of course, room descriptions for completing the directory, so as we talk about the room and go through the BlueTent memo, etc., I'm checking these off so that I know we've already talked about it. I'm just reviewing these as we look down here to make sure I didn't miss anything. We did the drawing room. Still haven't seen the library yet. Skipped the pool. We did the boiler room. We did security. Sadly, no workshop. Sauna, coat check. Mailroom, no. Freezer, no. We did chapel. We did Maid's chamber. Talked about the gymnasium. Oh, we skipped the furnace. We drafted it, but we didn't read it or anything, so I'll leave that undone. Did not see the East Wing Hall yet, which is not surprising. The East Wing Hall hates me. We did the secret passage. Skipped the commissary, didn't the kitchen, didn't do locksmiths, no showroom, bookshop, armory, or gift shop, obviously. Terrace, we did the terrace. That's it. Boudoir, guest bedroom. We did not draft the nursery, we just upgraded it. Bunk room we did. Outer room, still just the 2. No found floor plans yet. No studios. Obviously haven't done any of the trophies. We saw the North Star and the Twins, but then we've got enough free stars to skip over most of this stuff, actually. No manuscripts yet. Haven't seen the library yet. Let's see. Oh, we did Gardener's Logbook. That's it. Gift shop, no. Upgrades, we did the Westgate, obviously, with Gemstone, Cavern, and the Orchard. Now the common boiler room should not be that hard to get the Blackbridge Grotto unlocked with the laboratory. Looking forward to that. No stamps yet. I don't think I've even picked up the magnifying glass yet. We ate the porterhouse steak. It's the only meal I've had so far. No sledging. 3 upgrade discs, not bad. We did the archive patio filing cabinet. None of those. Haven't seen any more Jai boxes yet. 1 Alzara vision. No levers. 3 red letters. Gear wrench we've had. Really, nothing else. Okay. Stealing red crown. Okay, we've not done any of those yet. We have not read Dad's letter yet. Yeah, we haven't done the letter yet. And we haven't done any blessings
yet. So 6.3% out of 2 days. Not bad. Obviously, some of the things that we're going to eventually complete are worth more than others. But that is a decent start to this series. When this comes out to YouTube, some of it will be edited down to remove extraneous stuff of just me drafting around, and we'll be focusing on the lore of the rooms as we go. And I'm going to try and get that edited and put out as soon as possible. But so if you're watching this on YouTube, hopefully the next video, this one's obviously out by now, but the next one will be soon to follow. I'm going to be doing these on Monday nights, replacing my usual Blueprints bingo nights. The rest of the week, usually Wednesdays and Fridays, and maybe a Saturday, I'm currently playing through Pragmata, so come check that out if you're interested. And those as well are also getting pushed out to YouTube as fast as I can get them edited in between. So anyway, hope to see something out there. For everybody who stopped in tonight, Sushi and Jack Grimm, and let's see, Dread and Artsy, I know y'all popped in. If y'all are hanging around, Clef and Laser. So everybody who stopped in, whether you said hi and were chatting, or whether you popped in and were lurking, either way, appreciate you being here. If you are checking us out on the VOD after the fact, come check out one of the live shows. Like I said, Monday nights is Blueprints night for me, and YouTube as well. Come check it out live. So YouTube, thank you. Please like, subscribe, and come back for the rest of the series and check out the rest of the content on the channel while you're here. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.